Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting of Tuesday, January 19, 2021. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Kristen. Roll call, please, Kristen.
Okay. Albertson,
Here.
Bueller,
Here.
Hoyer,
Here.
Pauline, Lallam,
Here.
Manti,
Here.
Rademski,
Here.
Roby,
Here.
Billhauer,
Here.
Y.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Have a motion by Rademski and a second by Bueller. Any discussion? Councilman Roby?
There is one item on there I've recused myself in the past. I'll recuse myself again because of that. I will just abstain and voting from the consent agenda.
Okay, and that would be
It'd be 4L.
4L. Okay. 4L. Anyone else? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is public comment, and this is the time reserved for anyone who would like to make a public comment to step forward and do so. Please state your name into the microphone for the record before making your comment. And if your comment is related to an agenda item, please wait until that agenda item is taken up by the council. Is there anyone here or online who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 6, approval of the agenda. A motion by Billhauer
Second.
and a second by Hoyer. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 7 is the regular agenda, starting with A, approval of the proposed resolution of necessity number 21-04 for the assessment of the 10th Avenue North Sidewalk, project number 2007-A. Now look for motion to approval by, was that Holine? And a second by Bueller. And I will ask the Public Works Director / City Engineer Heath Von Eye to introduce this topic, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This item is one of the first steps to formally initiate an assessment project for public improvements that are directly related to and in association with our reconstruction of 10th Avenue North that'll be coming up here this year in 2021's construction season. If we recall from previous discussions, council's contemplated the inclusion of sidewalk improvements on the north side of 10th Avenue, replacing all sidewalk along this route from 4th Street West all the way east to Highway 81. And in that process, looking at appropriately assessing each property owner for their portion of those improvements that are relevant and applicable to their property. Those with sidewalk in good condition, those with sidewalk that we're relocating due to the widening of our road and things of that nature will not be assessed and will be part of the construction project. But there are a good number of sidewalks that don't meet the ADA standards or that do not exist along this route that we will be assessing or proposing to assess through this resolution of necessity for those sidewalk installations. A couple of stats I'll provide to council here briefly is that there are roughly 23, I think, properties along this route that would be formally assessed for the sidewalk costs. And if you also recall, we've implemented an update to our sidewalk cost share program, where that's helped reduce the cost, the end result of the cost to these homeowners, pretty, what I would say fairly substantially to help aid in those costs. With that cost participation that the city offers, the average cost per homeowner for their sidewalk is going to end up being roughly $600. And again, that is a very rough estimate. Some will pay more than that, some will pay less than that. Those that don't have sidewalk currently are obviously going to be assessed the most because of not having any sidewalk for a stretch of or all of their lot length. This resolution of necessity doesn't call out each address specifically, but does reference those properties that are generally receiving benefit by the sidewalk installation as deemed necessary. And it also doesn't spell out each lot's specific cost. That would be at the time of finalization of the assessment after the work is complete when we actually file the assessment. But all that being said, we'd be glad to help answer any questions that the council might have or that the public may have in relation to this resolution of necessity that again kicks off the assessment process for the sidewalk component of the 10th Avenue improvements.
Okay, thank you, Heath. I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing at this time, and if there's anyone here who would like to speak, I would ask you to please come forward and state your name into the record using the microphone. Is there anyone here that would like to speak about the sidewalk assessment project? All right, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and entertain council discussion. Councilman Bueller?
Thank you, Mayor. Heath, just can the property owners put in their own sidewalk if they wish to do that in this project?
Yeah, that's a good question, Councilman Bueller. And I don't know if Marcy would know that off the top of her head or Matt. We haven't necessarily contemplated that option, to my knowledge.
No, we haven't, and Matt would have to help me out on that.
Perhaps we could get that. I'd be interested to know what the answer is to that. And I'm sure the property owners up there may be some that would prefer to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
They could certainly come forward and choose to do that. I would think if they wanted to do that, and then we just simply would not include them in the work that was going to be done, and they would not end up on the assessment roll, which is the tail end of this process once the work is complete. If the council approves this resolution and there's a property on the resolution included in this resolution or the legal description here, and they decide they'd like to do it later on their own, we may have to come back and amend the resolution to take them out of the resolution. But there is a way, yes, it just may complicate matters.
Yeah, I'm sure there'd have to be some survey. There'd be survey issues and location issues for them if they put that in.
Right, we'd want to make sure that they aren't putting it at a different grade or a different alignment than the sidewalk that we're putting in. And with the project, we'll be bidding it out and we'll have the economy of scale. It should be cheaper to do it via the project. Plus, they have the ability to spread the cost over up to 10 years on their taxes if they do it through the assessment. Any other questions or comments? Councilman Vilhauer?
I'll be voting against this. I had previously expressed a concern. I'm in favor of our sidewalk ordinance in general, but because of no requirement, a similar requirement of anyone on the south side of the street, I question it as of a point of fairness to those on the north side. In my opinion, they're being penalized, so I'll be voting against this.
Anyone else? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Roll call vote, please.
Why?
Aye.
Vilhauer,
Nay.
Roby,
Aye.
Rademski,
Aye.
Manti,
Aye.
Lalum,
Aye.
Moline,
Aye.
Hoyer,
Aye.
Bueller,
Aye.
Albertson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item B is approval of the proposed resolution of necessity number 21-05 for the assessment of the 10th Avenue North Sanitary Sewer Services, project number 2007-B. I have a motion by Hoyer and a second by Vilhauer, and I'll ask Keith to tell us about this, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is similar in relation to the previous action, except this one is specific to the sanitary sewer service line work that will be performed through our 10th Avenue project. If you recall from previous Public Works Committee or council discussions, we, the city, are including in our project, in our scope of work, an extension of some of the sewer mains in order to allow for an appropriate individual connection of several residents along 10th Avenue. And what that will do and help accomplish is the elimination of several shared service lines. We've currently got a number of shared service lines all along 10th Avenue, some of which we will be able to correct with this project in the hopes to prevent people from having to dig into the new 10th Avenue after the construction is complete. This resolution of necessity, again, initiates the assessment process for those costs that are specific to each individual property owner along 10th Avenue that will be receiving new individual service lines. I will refer to Marcy briefly on the number of landowners that would affect, and again, a very approximate cost per landowner.
So the number of landowners that it will affect is 16, and then the approximate cost is $2,500.
So with the resolution of necessity, if passed tonight, again, that work would be included in our project and in the work that we bid, and be then oversought by the consultant, CDI, or city staff, and carried out through completion, and then the final assessment costs would be filed at the completion of the project and brought back to council for action at that point in time for each individual property owner that received benefit to a new sanitary sewer service installation. I know Marcy's been working closely with Matt on this, and the three of us will stand by for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions? Councilman Bueller?
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have, how many people would we have, property owners, that would have to do both? That would have to pay both? Do we know that?
I have an approximation. I didn't actually calculate that tonight, but I believe it's around 12.
12 of the 16 would
yeah.
also have sidewalk issues.
Yeah, there's a majority of them.
Yikes. Thank you.
This, you should note though, because we're doing this while the road's torn up, there's no cost for the pavement repair, which is normally the most expensive part of a sewer repair project, which very easily run $10,000 to $15,000 for a single homeowner. And so this being around $2,000 is a really good deal for.
Oh, I was surprised at that figure, to be honest with you, Mayor, that it was that low.
Yeah.
But it's still, it is obviously.
It's still a burden.
It's still a
It
burden,
is.
but
There's a benefit to.
Well,
these-
sure, and they're gonna
these
be-
Folks
they'll
are all
have-
sharing the same service with someone else. and
it'll
this
be brand
separates it.
new sewer, and a lot of that sewer up there is very, very old.
Right. Yeah, so,
Can I enter?
Sure.
Just want to put a reminder out there that this is just for their private sewer. We are not assessing the cost of the main to any of the homeowners.
Right.
right. Okay. Councilman Roby?
Marcia brings up a good point. Would you clarify or just further define that? 'Cause I think that's an important point.
So the at a previous action by the council, we have chosen to assess only the private sewer service, so from their property to the main that's in the street. The main work and the manholes, any other necessary additions are covered by the city. Does that answer that?
I believe the cost of that public sewer main extension that the city is bearing was to the tune of $125,000?
96,000, I believe.
Just under 100,000.
So you're saving $9,000 per homeowner on the average, so that's a good deal for them. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing at this time. If there's anyone here who would like to speak about this, please come forward. If you're online, just state your name and say request permission to speak. Okay, now it is.
Juanita Lentz. I live on the corner of 10th Avenue and 81 there. And I'm wondering, are you going to have the same guys that are doing the street do ours up to our house?
And that will be part of the project, I'm assuming, and they'll, I don't know how they're bidding that out, but Heath, you could probably answer that better.
Yeah, so the sewer service line work will be bid with our project. And depending on the contractor that gets the general contract, they'll have a series of subcontractors working underneath them. And so I would only assume, it'd be an assumption on my part to think that whoever's doing the sewer main is likely going to do the sewer service lines as well.
Because I know at one of the meetings that we had, you said you didn't want just somebody off the street doing the lines. And you said you'd want it your own person doing all of them. That's what you were saying before.
That would be one of the benefits in doing it under the city bid project, is that you'd have one contractor doing the repairs for all the locations.
So when that person gave the bid, our bids should be lower because he's doing the job of everybody's?
In theory, you'd see some economy of scale there, exactly.
Normally, you would see it that way.
That's what I'm saying. I just want to make sure that that's what you guys are saying. That
Right.
person's going to be bidding less than what you
Right.
guys are coming up with now.
Right, they're only mobilizing once for 16 houses instead of 16 times. So they spread that cost off. And I mean, we can't predict what it's going to be, but it makes sense that it should be less.
Okay, is this 4-inch that you're talking about coming towards our house? Is that what's in there now?
Most likely, that's a standard size.
Okay, I just want to clarify that.
We don't know what's in the ground right now. We don't have records on it. It was all put in shared and private, and you can't detect them from above till we open up the ground and find them. And it could be a challenge to find them as well because of that reason.
Okay, just want to make sure you know that.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Can I make one point of clarity to the questions there? I wanted to make sure that, just based on the comments, I didn't want any misunderstanding left. The estimates we provided today are where we feel the cost will come in, just based on our engineering estimates. In relation to whether those would be lower than somebody doing them individually, we think that yes, that's likely could be the case based on economy of scale. But what we're not saying is that we think the bid will necessarily come in lower than these estimates.
Oh, right.
That's not
Yeah,
not the message I wanted to be heard tonight.
Right.
Just for clarity.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
And we haven't gotten the bids yet, so we don't know what the actual price will be. Seeing no one else, I'm going to close the public hearing and entertain council discussion. Councilman Albertson?
Thanks, Mayor. I think maybe that answered my question, what Heath just said, that I was going to ask if we've already bid that, or is Juanita Lamp might have better news, and certainly if she tried to do it herself. So that was going to be my question, so I think Heath answered it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Councilman Villar?
I've got a question for Heath. Just in general, when are we looking at bidding that entire project out?
I will defer to Marcy. She's been working closely with CDI, our consultant, on that timeline, Go ahead, Marcy.
Just today, I asked CDI if we could potentially have it bid out before March 1st. Anytime after March 1st, we could see a little jump in prices, just because contractors have already bid out quite a bit. Yep.
All right, thank you. Item C is the first reading of ordinance number 21-01, an ordinance repealing section 19.0108 and amending section 19.0132 of the revised ordinances of the City of Watertown, clarifying the permissibility of U-turns. There's no action here, it's just a first reading. So I'll ask the City Attorney, Matt Roby, to explain it.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just give a brief overview, and then I see Assistant Police Chief Tim Toomey is on the line as well. But it was actually Assistant Chief Toomey that brought this to my attention, our attention, and we had a little group that got together and took a look at it. And basically what it boils down to is we had conflicting ordinances. One of our ordinances said U-turns are not allowed, period. And another ordinance contemplated that U-turns would be allowed, but wouldn't be allowed at stop and go intersections. So what we did here is eliminate that contradiction, and the proposed policy of the city here regarding U-turns would be that they would be permitted only at intersections that are not regulated by electronic signals or stop signs.
All right, thank you. Any questions, Council? Councilman Roby?
Just to clarify, so if I'm at an uncontrolled intersection, I can whip a Yui anytime I want.
You sure can, after we pass this.
Okay, did that get discussed, and what was discussed on that topic?
Well, I was part of the group, and we looked at what others have for regulations, and we looked at what the problems are, if we have any problems. I think this would be a good place for Assistant Chief Toomey to interject and tell us what you think.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor and City Council. Forever since I've been a new officer for 20 years now, we've always understood it to be allowed at uncontrolled intersections. That doesn't mean they give up. They have to give up the right of way for any normal traffic through the intersections. This is actually a little more restrictive than most other cities, but it's the easiest way to enforce it and to clean up our ordinances. So this is what we came up with and we recommend.
And I believe, Assistant Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, if you're approaching an uncontrolled intersection and you whip a UE and you happen to cut off another vehicle or do something to that effect, there's other remedies for that: reckless driving, careless driving. So, really, you'd still need to do that U-turn in a safe manner, and a safe and responsible and manner that doesn't interfere with other drivers. And so typically that would be at a time where there's no other cars at the intersection or near the intersection.
That's correct. Yeah, you have to give up the right of way to anybody else using the intersection for normal means. It essentially takes out the mid-block turn, which is dangerous, and it just cleans up the ordinance.
Right. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Item D is the first reading of ordinance number 21-02, establishing the zoning designation of I-2 Heavy Industrial District for a portion of Watertown Crop Nutrients LLC property located at 17742 453rd Avenue, Watertown, South Dakota. And this is also a first reading, so no action. Heath, want to tell us about this, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As you indicated, it is the first reading of a zoning for a portion of land that's owned by Watertown Crop Nutrients LLC. I'll pull up a map for reference here, but it's essentially the southern third or so of the property that is currently being operated in an I-2 zoning district. And you'll see the purple shaded area on this map is currently annexed and zoned. all this property down into this blue outlined area is under the same ownership, and it's essentially a housekeeping item to pull the rest of this property into the city, which the annexation will be at the second reading of this zoning. But then, of course, appropriately zone it similarly to the northern part of the property as an I-2 zoning district. And really, it's that straightforward. There are some subsequent actions needed by the Board of Adjustment to continue to help clean this up as far as conditional uses and such. And those will be managed accordingly upon the timelines for those applications. But before the council tonight is simply the first reading for the rezone to zone this area highlighted in blue as an I-2 zoning district to be subsequently annexed into the city. And urban planner Brandy Hant is online, and her and I would be glad to help answer any questions.
Right, so this was supposed to have been annexed before the building permits were granted on the main part of the property, and it just didn't happen for some reason that nobody knows, but we caught it somehow and discovered that it hadn't been, with inquiries and wanting to make things right on the property. Any questions, Councilman Villar?
I know this is a rather contentious item on the recent Planning Commission, I think also Board of Adjustment meeting that same night. Can you tell me, Heath, that the I don't know, half a dozen, 6, 7 or so homeowners immediately adjacent to the east, are those already annexed in and zoned, or are they still outside of city limits?
I would defer to Brandy to clarify that. I don't believe they are, but Brandy, could you clarify that, please?
Yep, you're right. They are not.
Okay.
So those are residents outside the formal city limits, but yet obviously immediately adjacent to this use, and we as staff have been in discussions with them about their concerns of this use, and we'll continue to have those discussions at the BOA level as well.
Councilman Bueller?
Thanks, Mayor. I did look at, and I had a discussion with Brandy earlier today in regards to the section in here about salvage and wind turbine blades for storage. And I don't know, Brandy, do you want to address that just momentarily for everybody? Please.
Yep, no problem. So that use will be heard at the February 4th Board of Adjustment meeting. And that is actually what triggered us to realize that that south 40 acres that we're looking at annexing and zoning right now was not completed in 2012 when this all came forward. That's where when Heath says this is a housekeeping item, we're just making sure that the entire property will now be within city limits. The I-2 heavy industrial district is consistent with the comp plan. And so then, but those, the wind turbine blade storage, you can see there on the map that Heath has pulled up, there's kind of a graded pad just to the north. That is where they'll be storing those blades. And they do have an agreement with the company that is managing that, so that it doesn't become a perpetual storage area, that they are having to, they'll pay a monthly fee for as long as the blades are sitting there. So it'll be most likely they'll be motivated to get those out of or off of the property, you know, so they're not continuously being charged. But that will be a deeper conversation for the Board of Adjustment meeting on February 4th.
Thanks, Brandy.
The contention is based upon the noise primarily, right, of unloading and loading from the trains or onto the trains or off
Yep,
the trains.
and so that's another conditional use that will also be heard on February 4th. So it'll be for the train loading and unloading, the fertilizer manufacturer or manufacturing, and the salvage storage for the wind turbine blades. So we'll have to address those, but in all reality, those conditional uses should have been granted in 2012 before the building permit was issued.
Right, thank you. Councilman Albertson?
Thanks, Mayor. Brandy, I watched that session too with the Board of Adjustment,
And is anything going to be done as a site barrier to that new property that's being added there? Because right now they were concerned about the wind turbine blades, but there'll be other things back there. Or is that just going to be up to the house owners there, or where will that come into play? Because they were concerned about that they look out their window and there's this stuff.
Right, and they are relocating those blades up to that pad area shown, but then that will all be something that the Board of Adjustment can consider with the conditional use action and see if there can be some buffering considered.
Okay.
And I did, I had further correspondence with the adjacent landowners there, and I do have a neighborhood meeting set up with them later this week so that we can try to discuss a little further before the Board of Adjustment meeting.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions or comments, Council?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
For point of clarity, just for the council's sake, the zoning of the I-2, which is the first reading action before them tonight, does not allow, none of these uses that are currently going on or proposed to be going on are permitted in the I-2 zoning district. So the council's approval of the I-2 would not inherently allow those uses. That's why they have to go back to the Board of Adjustment to formally get conditional use approvals at the BOA level. And those conditional use approvals, as Brandy's indicated, will likely include everything from the fertilizer manufacturing that's gone on for quite some time, and this potential new use of those wind turbine blade offloading and loading for recycling purposes of those.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to item E, which is authorization for the mayor to sign addendum number 1 to the contract with TSP Inc. for the design of renovation of City Hall, project number 2035, in the additional amount of $188,012, bringing the total contract amount to $203,012. A motion by Vilhauer and a second by Bueller. Okay, so this is the project that we have to design the renovations, and was on the agenda for the last council meeting and was postponed to this meeting to give the council time to do a little more homework and find out some more information. I know several of the council members did meet with and talk to our consultant, and some of them did a tour of the building. And I did ask a couple times if there were any questions that I could help answer, and I didn't get a single question from any of the council members, so I think that's a good sign. And I guess I would like to hear if anyone that was feeling insecure about it got their questions answered, or if there's still outstanding questions. Council?
Glenn, did you want to? All right.
I'll have a comment, but go ahead.
Well, I think the question at hand is whether or not we want to continue forward with TSP and the contract. That's you know, I can give you just I'll try to be brief because it looks like we might have a long night. But Glenn and I both, we've had discussions with TSP just to kind of substantiate some of the recommendations that they have. One of the bigger ones in question was HVAC, and then the sprinkling issue, and some of the higher dollar components to the redesign of the Wells Fargo building. And they've been real helpful with us in answering questions, but we felt it was prudent for us to get, make sure that we ask the questions and to find out if these things were necessary and how they had to be set up timing wise. But and there probably still are. But one thing we did ask also is that we get sort of a 10,000 foot view instead of a 30,000 foot view of some of the itemized costs. And so we've had discussions about that, and so we do have some decisions to make further down the road as to, what direction we want to go with some of these expenditures, if on the timing, and whether or not we want to do them, or if we want to phase some of this project. But anyway, so I just wanted to say that I think we've done our best to vet this, and Glenn, I don't know if you have some
Yeah,
comment.
I'll just echo what Bruce has said. Tonight, we're not here to make a decision on some of the components. I mean, the HVAC system, for example, that's not our charge tonight. Our charge is whether or not we want to continue to work with TSP, and I would say definitely we do. I do want to make a comment though for the public's sake. I think we got the cart before the horse in one regard here. When the public heard that we were buying the Wells Fargo building for $1.3 million as a city hall, I think they thought, hey, we got a really good deal, and we're going to move into a new building and for a city hall, and we're done. Well, I think we all knew going in there was going to have to be some renovation done. Unfortunately, we did not get any kind of estimates ahead of time to present for our review and for the public's response as far as what those renovation costs may be. We should have packaged the two together, the renovation along with the discussion about buying the building, so the public was fully aware going in that it was going to be more than just the building cost. Well, that's water under the bridge at this point. We still have a good deal with the building. I think when it's all said and done, even with the renovation, we're going to have a facility that's going to suit our needs and coming in significantly less than what we were anticipating spending, to the tune of millions of dollars less than what we were potentially looking at spending on a different facility. So, like I say, we probably got the cart before the horse in some regards, but I'm all in favor of moving forward with this project, and that includes working with TSP as our architects.
Right. Councilman Bueller?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I also I think this has been a gift to the community. I really do. It's going to save us a whole bunch of money, and we'll have a really good structure to work from for years and years, I think. But I personally think that we should continue down this road with TSP. That would be my vote tonight.
All right, thank you. And just for your information, we do have Tad Holt online. If any of the council members have any questions from TSP, they're here. And if you have any questions for them. Anyone else have anything to say? Councilman Lallam?
Thank you, Mayor. On this one, just because we approve this, this contract with TSP does not mean that we are fully moving forward. I just want the public to be fully aware that this is this is our contract with TSP to come up with design, and to Glenn and Bruce's point that we maybe we phase this, maybe it's done over time, or maybe it's done all at once. It's one of those things that we have to decide what we're going to do on it, but want to make sure that the public's fully aware that it's basically the contract with the architect only.
Right.
That is correct.
That's true.
And Mayor, I will just one more. I'm sorry. Just one other thing too. I think the fee that they're charging, the percentage for construction costs, I think is reasonable, especially with a renovation. You could expect it to be a little less typically with new construction, but in this case with demolition and some of the things they have to do prior to construction, I think it's probably a pretty fair cost.
Right, thank you. All right, if there's nothing else, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is update on the ice arena status, and I'll let the chairman of the ice arena committee, Councilman Holeen.
Thank you, Mayor.
Tell about this.
And I want to thank you for putting this on the agenda for me tonight, and I'll explain why in the introduction. With a project as large and complex as the multipurpose ice arena, which is now how I'm referring to it, because it's not going to be just ice. There will always be other uses for it. So in my head, I'm just calling it MPI or multipurpose ice. But with a project as large and complex as this, there's a row of dominoes that have to fall into place to make it happen. And everyone has always been waiting for one of the large dominoes to fall. That's corporate sponsorship, location, city bonding. And we've waited a long time. So when word got out that the council is actively pursuing a resolution to the ice after so many years, I want to commend several of the user groups, the citizens of Watertown, who contacted me and wanted to step up and do their part. They know it's not the largest domino, but they have an exciting proposal that they want to bring forward to the council to tell about their efforts and what they're willing to do to make this happen. Like I said, it's not the largest domino, but it's a very big domino that can get this going and keep the momentum going to find resolutions. So I want them to come forward, give their proposal, and the reason why I wanted it on the agenda is because this way, if the council members have any questions for them, they can ask them. If it was just in opening comments or at the end, they couldn't have. So thank you very much. And with that, I'll introduce Eric Scott, the president of the Watertown Hockey Association, and Marcy Cole, president of the Watertown Figure Skating Club. So thank you very much.
Now are we on? Okay. Eric Scott with the Watertown Hockey Association. And I'll try to keep this brief. I can get a little bit windy, and so I'm going to try to stick to the script and just read this letter that's being passed around that has been signed by all of the board members of the Hockey Association and outlines our commitment to help get this done for the community. So, dear Mayor, Watertown City Council, and the citizens of Watertown, over the past several years, the City of Watertown has been actively planning and deliberating on the construction of a new facility that will house 2 sheets of ice to be utilized by the Watertown Hockey Association, the Watertown Figure Skating Club, and all of the other recreational users, including men's league hockey, curling clubs, and many visitors and community members that enjoy open skate on a regular basis. As an organization, WHA is fully in support of this effort by the city and is committed to supporting the construction of such facility. We understand that this is a huge investment by the community, and we wish to do our part. WHA deploys a hardworking and ambitious group of passionate parent volunteers to pull off every hockey season. Each hockey season, our volunteers work thousands of hours to ensure our youth can enjoy a great experience and have fun learning those valuable life lessons that sport teaches us so well. While X's and O's are important, respect for the game and its officials, the value of hard work, and the ability to persevere when times are difficult are the most important lessons we teach. These are the characteristics that will allow today's young ladies and gentlemen to become prosperous citizens and leaders of tomorrow. Those many hours volunteered by our parents not only impact the youth of WHA, they have a tremendous economic impact on our community. Each year, WHA hosts over 150 games for out-of-town visitors. We host at least 5 tournaments per year with 8 teams per tournament, a number which could be doubled or maybe even tripled with a second sheet of ice. It is estimated that the economic impact for the community today is in the millions of dollars. It is our objective to make sure hockey is a great experience for our players, for our community, and for all of our visitors. We strive to make sure our visitors enjoy their time in Watertown and they look forward to their next visit, enjoying all that we have to offer in this great community. Again, WHA is committed to doing everything possible to help build a facility that our community can be proud of. We're not only committed in spirit, with our words and with our time, but we are prepared to put our money where our mouth is. We are committed to raising a minimum of $2 million to aid in the construction of this new 2-sheet facility. This commitment consists of in-kind donations and cash. We have a good portion of cash on hand, and we have obtained several pledges, including $750,000 in matching funds from one donor. Furthermore, we believe we have the ability to raise an additional $1 to $2 million through a capital campaign. We are prepared to hire a professional fundraiser to help us maximize the amount of money possible for this effort, with a goal to raise $3 million or more in total. And, Marcy and I have visited and different members with Watertown Figure Skating Club. And obviously this is going to be a community-wide effort and an effort by the user groups working together. And so that's where, Marcy, they've got a commitment. This is kind of the commitment from WHA. She has her own remarks to read, but ultimately we envision working together to raise funds for this project.
Wow, thank you. That is fantastic. Marcy, can't wait to hear what you have to say.
This is a statement from our board of directors as well. First off, we want to thank you for your commitment to making Watertown the community that is growing and vibrant that it is today. Watertown has so much to offer, and hopefully very soon among those amenities will be a 2-sheet ice arena. We are here this evening to let you know that the Watertown Figure Skate Club is committed to working with the City of Watertown, the Watertown Hockey Association, and this community to do our part in seeing a project that we have talked about for so many years a reality. WFSC is stepping up to the plate as well, and we are showing our commitment to the construction of the new ice arena by pledging $750,000 in kind and monetary donations. Please know that we believe we are able to raise more funds, but we want to be realistic and not overpromise and underdeliver. We have visited with businesses and families that we know, and we have pledges of financial support should the new rink be built. WFSC is also committed to working side by side with the Watertown Hockey Association in fundraising efforts that will benefit the new arena by offsetting costs. In short, WFSC is committed to doing our part and helping in any way we are able to make this new arena a reality. Our program is growing fast, and our families are committed and willing. Recently, we held a U.S. figure skate test session, which brought 75 skater families to Watertown. These families traveled from within South Dakota, Minnesota, and North Dakota. They were staying in our hotels, eating at our restaurants, shopping in our retail stores, and fueling with fuel as they headed out of town. We estimate this event brought well over $10,000 to the community for the one-day event. This event could have been larger if we had a bigger facility, as we actually had to turn skaters away due to a full schedule and lack of available ice. Should we get a larger facility, we are committed to doing more of these types of events, as well as regional competitions, sectionals, and ice shows. These events would be much larger and would bring larger amounts of people from a tri-state region to Watertown, and with that, more revenue into our community. Figure skating does not have a season, so to speak, so we are able to host these events year-round. With a larger rink, the economic impact to our community through additional events could be even more substantial than it is presently. We want you to know that this is more than just about building a new ice arena. This is about impacting the youth of our community and enhancing the quality of life here in Watertown. Programs like ours and the Watertown Hockey Association create and cultivate opportunities for participation and achievement. These programs we offer are about more than skating. The lessons learned are lessons for life. Figure skating teaches youth dedication, commitment, focus, and perseverance, as well as lifelong lessons in sportsmanship, teamwork, self-discipline, and interpersonal growth. The confidence and joy we see in our kids gained today will become the greatness of kids to achieve in the world tomorrow. Challenging kids makes them stronger than you can imagine. By having ice in Watertown, we are able to give back to the community by helping children learn positively, grow in confidence, and personal strength. WFSC, more now than ever, is committed and aligned with the City of Watertown and the Watertown Hockey Association. And we want to continue to impact the children of this community by providing programs that will impact them for a lifetime. Building this rink isn't just about hockey or figure skating, it's about building a community for the future. Let's make this long talked about dream of a new ice arena a reality. It is time to move forward, and we appreciate your support.
Thank you. Oh my goodness, this is wonderful. This is wonderful. I want to clap. Wow, this is what we needed. The community needed to see that you were committed to seeing this through, because there's not a person on the council that doesn't want it to happen. Everybody wants it to happen. We just got to figure out how to do it and be able to afford it. So this will go a long way to helping with that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could I have just one comment
Absolutely.
before? I think that there's other people here to watch it, but I don't think that they want to testify. But I just wanted to say that with both groups, when I talked with them, I wanted to show like proof of concept, because it's been around for so long. And everyone knows that the community is kind of behind it, but I wanted to see what we could find out. So I just wanted to say that both groups, within 2 days of me talking to them, both groups came in with donors of over 6 figures.
Wow.
Okay, so this isn't just some dream or pie in the sky that this could happen. It was happening, and actually I had to play a mea culpa, and I had to call them both up and say, no, wait, you have to stop. You're doing too good, because what was happening is I didn't want to double hit donors. I wanted to come back and make sure we had a plan, because at least for me, both groups definitely showed proof of concept that the community was behind it. They were going to be able to raise the money, and I just wanted to say, okay, wait a minute, you proved it to me, come to the council, show that, and let's, maybe hire someone to do it right, plan out a strategy, because that's how, like, Mavericks or the Goss did it, and you have to do it right. So they definitely proved it to me, but thank you for allowing me that, because it might stave off some questions.
This is great. Anybody have questions while they're here? Or comments? Councilman Albertson has his hand up.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to thank Eric and Marcy for their presentation. But one of the things they didn't mention is that with 2 sheets of ice, the kids that practice from 9 o'clock until 11 o'clock are typically younger kids. And they're kind of a forgotten thing here, because they can only get on the ice when they can get on, and that's late time. And so it definitely has a bearing on their education also. So this is just another win for the second sheet of ice in Watertown.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else? Councilman Lallam?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks to both you and both your respective organizations for coming up. It's not an easy one. The multi-use ice facility has been in discussion for years, probably since I was in high school, which is getting to be a few years longer than I care to admit most of the times. But our current facility is limping along at best. I don't have to tell you that. I mean, we are constantly running into issues with compressors and ice issues and things of that nature. So the commitment that you guys are making is obviously huge. Our community is clamoring for flat floor space as well. The other question we get asked is, what do you do with the current ice arena? Frankly, the old Armory is the #1 utilized facility that we have, and it's only utilized for flat floor space. So, the argument about what you do with the Mace as it sits right now, I think we can answer that one pretty quickly as well. And I know, Eric, you have kids that are in other sports that would, I'm sure, use it, and anyone that does soccer, I'm sure that falls into it as well. Eric touched on it, that it brings in lots of money, and Marcy, I know these people that come to town that for figure skating and hockey, both, they spend money because I'm one of those people. It is one of those items that you don't go for one day. I mean, and if you do go, you go out to eat a couple times, you have to get gas, you have to get other items, and if you have kids like mine, they got to eat every 2 hours, it seems like. So I want to thank you guys both for coming. The figure skating events, we're underutilized for that, plain and simple. In hockey, there's constant, but the thing that we have to realize as a community, it's not just ice hockey, it's not just figure skating. There are other events that are utilized in this building. If we do a 2-sheet facility, it's not going to be both sheets utilized 12 months out of the year. You can't, from a maintenance aspect and other issues that go with it. So it has to be done as a multi-use facility. One side most likely would be utilized for, I would assume, between 10.5 and 11 months based on the information that we've been provided from an ICE committee, which means that 11 months out of the year, you can host some sort of ICE event. The other side is getting utilized for concerts or craft shows or other events where car shows that bring in a different style and a different group of people. We have an opportunity that we can utilize the other event as well as parking that goes with it. So parking lot is sometimes just as good as anything else. So we have to look at this as not just a ICE facility. I think that's to Reed's point as well. It's a multi-use ICE facility. Yeah, there's ice in it, but we have to look at the big picture of it and utilize it year round. It's the only way that gets done. The naysayers that are out there say that we can't compete with your Rapid City and Sioux Falls. I'm sure you guys hear the same thing. That's not true. Hockey especially is done on a rotation basis. They look at the overall community as how many hotel rooms, how many, what's the traffic, what's the food situation, can you get people in and out? That all spurs economic development across our entire community. And it's not, the $1 million I believe Brookings put out a couple years ago, there was an economic impact from the Larson Ice facility over 1 year. And they don't even have a minor league team anymore. So they are utilized by their college, by the locals. There's open skate, there's figure skate, there's hockey. They also have concerts and other events that are constantly being utilized. So that's how it has to be envisioned. That's how it has to go forward. So the people that are out there that's saying it's simply for, these two small groups that can't be utilized that way and be effective. I mean, we have to look at this as a big picture item. And I think that what your commitment that you're putting forward shows the community that we're willing to put up our, put our money where our mouth is, so to speak, and, try to make this long-term vision a reality. And I appreciate it and I applaud both of your guys' organizations. So thank you very much.
Anyone else? Councilman Holeen?
I guess I would have a question. I know the answer, but for the council, I want to be open and transparent. So would you explain that some of these donations would come in the form of in-kind?
Yes, ours, like I said, is a mixture of in-kind. We have connections with locker room installation. We also have some, fairly substantial financial commitments. So it would be a combination. We also could get creative in doing some other things within the building that maybe you would hire out that we could help complement. So really, in the end, we want to do whatever it is, whatever it takes to get this new complex built.
Excellent.
Okay. Yeah, I just echo Marcy's sentiment. It's some in-kind donation, saving, being able to pull some things out of the budget, dasher boards, things like that, finishing out locker rooms, and on the back end too. My theory is that may provide the city and the community, the city council, wanting to be prudent about spending our funds, with some back-end assurances. If we don't raise the money or if we don't do those things, then we don't have a facility we can use. So, I mean, the dasher boards are an easy one, or the locker rooms is, the city takes it so far, and if we don't get those things done, then we don't have a facility we can use. So, but yes, a lot of in-kind donations. We have a lot of labor force, a lot of members within the Hockey Association, and I'm sure figure skaters as well, that have knowledge and skills in the industry and are more than willing to put a little sweat equity into something they can be proud of for their children and for the community.
All right. Councilman Rademski?
The other thing that community needs to be aware of is, Watertown we've built schools, we've built a safety building, we've built fire halls, we've got a new softball complex, we've got the Anza soccer complex. I don't know how many people are aware of this, but we actually lost a family of this community because of hockey. And the couple that left Watertown with their children, they were making good money, and they just didn't feel that we had adequate facility here for hockey. When companies are looking to move to a community, they look and see what, not just what the labor force is, but they also look to see, if I'm going to move a company here and I'm going to move 200 jobs to Watertown, how am I going to impact my labor force? What is there to do in this town as a community? And I think we've addressed most of those issues other than hockey. I think if we can get this hockey arena built, then, that's one more feather in our cap to attract business and industry to this town also. And I guess I really don't, we keep hearing, for the last 20 years, I mean, that thing's been running on borrowed time for as long as I can remember. And you know, if we have to bond for this and wrap it with something else, but have we ever done a survey or a study, you know, with the rest of the general community to see where they're at with this? I mean, who knows? Maybe for the last 10 years they've been ready, the community's been ready to bond for this, but we just never knew about it. You know, so I think that's another avenue that we need to explore is, you know, through, you know, some kind of survey or send out some mailers to residents and find out, you know, how much support do we actually have from the general community.
Councilman Lallam?
Just to Councilman Rademski's point there, actually KWAT had that on their, they had a survey up on Facebook, which, you know, you take that with a grain of salt, but, you know, they had over 3,000 respondents, and that was, I believe, 70+% that were in favor of it versus the 30 against. So.
Councilman Roby?
In response to Jason's comments, I respect the question. I think part of the answer is it came through loud and clear in H2O 2020. It really did.
Right.
That was where this really got momentum, and you look at the three projects that came together. If we go back and look at that, you'll read that came through pretty clearly.
Right, it's one of the, we've done a lot of things based upon that vision plan, the H 2020, and this has been in there all along, waiting its turn. So, did you want to speak?
Yeah, if I
Mr.
could,
Lallam?
Mayor, thank you. Kyle Lallam, I was on the implementation and steering committee for the H2020, and like Councilman Roby just indicated, the proof is in the document that was approved overwhelmingly by the voters of the community, with, I believe, 73% of the respondents approving the bond that was already addressed for the quality of life. Multi-purpose facility, wellness center, multi-purpose facility, softball complex, and ice arenas. So, you know, that voice has already been heard. You couple that with what the radio station had on their website as far as their survey as well. I think that was predicated on a location more so than it was the actual need for it. And then to Councilman Rademski's point, I mean, when you are looking at the reason that bond was done is as a quality of life bond, not only for the residents of community of Watertown as the community, but also as a driving force to try and attract business and industry to our community, and to try and quantify the dollar amount that will go toward having 2 sheets of ice would be easily attainable if you track the sales numbers based on the tournaments that they've had for the one season at the softball complex, the Premier Softball Complex, and what the basketball tournaments have done with the collegiate basketball tournament that was here, which actually just canceled from the Wellness Center. The swim meets and the tournaments is there. So the community has already spoken in this regard. And, you know, the ice was the third part of that stool, right? The third leg of that stool. If you had a 20% overrun on a softball complex and we'd have built the ice arena 6-7 years ago at $8 million, a 20-30% overrun on a softball complex, you wouldn't be talking these big dollars, because if they built that for $5 million or $3 million or $4 million, 20% over the top of that, that's another $1 million too. So you'd be looking at 6 versus the 15 that was proposed today, or the number that's floated around in the community, versus the 8 to 10 that it was a number of years ago. So as far as the H2O20 visioning group is concerned, that piece has already been approved by the voters and bonded. So I appreciate your time and commitment and continuing to bring this up. It's difficult to navigate those waters when you're looking at taxpayer funds, but if you look at the economic driver for it and the fact that the community has already overwhelmingly approved it, you know, that goes back into that quality of life bond. So kudos to you for continuing to keep the pedal down, because like Mr. Rademski said, I mean, when you're attracting businesses and we've got 4 months of winter, we still have things and facilities for the employees, their families, and things to do. We've got a great school system. You've got a walking path and things like that are open year round pretty much when we snowplow those, and you've got other things to do. So I appreciate your time and commitment to that, Councilman Holine and everybody else, and congratulations to you guys for showing your commitment to it too. So thank you.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, Eric Scott again, and I'm wearing my my builder and my real estate professional hat. I can verify that we have a lot of people looking from Minnesota, and I think Kyle would tell you the same thing. People are moving here. A lot of people, again, from Minnesota because of proximity, because we have lakes, because it's a similar climate. They're looking at Watertown very closely, and as we all know, hockey is a religion in Minnesota. So, this type of facility does make it that much more attractive for those people from Minnesota to jump the border here. So,
Thank you. I know that's true. Councilman Holeen?
Mayor, I do have a little bit more information to reveal to the council tonight and to the public. I did want to say some of the things like it's long overdue to find a resolution to this. I think everyone wants one. And then the comments have been made how, unlike other large budget items for the city, this one brings in money. Now, I don't want to say, I actually am in favor of the other large budget items. I just want ICE, or a resolution on multipurpose ICE, to take precedence because it has been on the minds of the community for the longest, and it is also very large and complicated. So I wanted to take precedence. But the information I would like to reveal tonight is I have already been contacted by a junior professional team that wants to come to Watertown and play hockey here. Now, a junior professional team, for those who don't know, are mostly like college-age kids who are trying to gain skills and maybe bulk up, actually, in order to try to make it into the NHL. This is similar to what is taking place in Aberdeen, used to be in Brookings, down in Sioux Falls. And it's a lot of fun for the community because it gives you a team to follow, a place to go on winter nights. So this junior team wants to come in, and just rough estimates for each game night. I took a Boston College study from the town of Lewiston, Maine, and they estimated that hockey in that town the junior team brought in $20 million over 10 years, so $2 million a year. Now, I extrapolated those numbers to Watertown. I scaled those down drastically, considerably. And I basically just took the studies across the industry are that a person who goes to a junior league hockey game will spend about $60 a night in tickets, food, drinks, and I did 600 people a night, 20 games a year, and I got to about $750,000 that this would bring into the economy of Watertown every year. And then also the junior team itself, because they have to come into town and they pay fees to the city, they pay fees to the families that they live with, and then they also spend money in the community. The estimates are that the junior team itself would spend $500,000 every year that it's here. This is what I want, and then there's also the intangibles of it gives the community a place to go, LATC kids something to do on a winter's night. But I want to just stress something. I'm at the point, because we have one sheet of ice and we literally have no free time, I am already telling this junior team that we can't take them because we don't have room. I can't tell the junior team that they will get precedence over the children of Watertown. So this is just something more that if we do this, there is the economic intangibles and economic impact to the community. And that's just another reason why I think now is the time. I just want to stress it. I want to thank you too for coming up and showing that this time it's going to be different. And I just stress for everyone in the community, everyone on the council, let's be the people who finally get this done. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Agree with everything. Councilman Hoyer?
Guys, once again, just want to say thank you for stepping up. I mean, that is something we talk about all the time of wanting to see, and that is a huge investment. Of course, as we go ahead looking at this complex problem set, just know that does involve things like if we bring in a junior team, how does that schedule and impact your guys' time on the ice and making sure you get enough time? And then if we're doing a multi-use facility, making sure we get scheduling and stuff. So like that's always been a big part of why this has taken the time it has. And I know you guys know that there's just a lot that goes into running a facility like this. So again, thank you for stepping up and showing up with it. This won't get done overnight, of course, but there's still a lot of planning that needs to go into it. So
Right.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councilman Lallam?
Actually, to Councilman Hoyer's point, typically the junior league team would actually practice during the day when it's not figure skating time, or they're high school kids or right out of high school type of age group. So they'll actually practice morning, early afternoon. So we wouldn't actually have to worry about them going over top of the younger kids' time frame. So that actually is a plus.
Good to know. Councilman Hoyer?
Along those lines, or maybe it's a conversation for another day, I don't know. But since you had an answer with that, did you guys talk about then too the public's use of the facility for open skate and stuff and how that would impact? I know there would probably be some questions on that.
One of the things that we as an ICE committee has talked about is it can't be simply for everyone else. I mean, our actual citizens need to use it as well. And I think the user groups, and I would assume that the, a junior league team would look at the same thing, that open skate is something that we used to have 5 days a week. Now we're down to 2, and it's for an hour at a time, depending on your age group. So it needs to be something that we expand that as well.
Yeah, I know our Park and Rec department has curling equipment. There's just no time to use it.
Yep. And then with curling, you got to specialize the ice. It actually has to have, it can't be smooth. It actually has to have bumps on it. So it's kind of an interesting, you put sand down to get, so when you broom it, it actually moves the curling rock to where it's supposed to. So it is an interesting one where typically in hockey and figure skating, you want smooth ice. There they need to have a little bit of bump to it. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it very much. And just for the record, I know it's going on. People are saying we voted on the bond, we voted on the wellness center. What did we really vote on? So I actually had the finance officer print the ballot from 2014. We actually voted on the wellness center. And it not to take anything away from the ice arena. That was in our vision plan to do the ice arena. The bonds that were voted on were for the wellness center. And I'll just read it. And anybody can find this. It's a public document. Watertown City Council adopted Resolution 1409, March 17, 2014, authorizing the city to perform all acts necessary to complete the construction of a multi-use facility within and for the city of Watertown. This resolution was referred to the voters by petition. Resolution 1409 will not become effective unless approved by a majority vote. The resolution to authorize the city of Watertown to perform all acts necessary to complete the construction of a multi-use facility within and for the city of Watertown. And the city attorney's explanation was, the resolution authorizes the performance of all acts necessary, including the issuance of sales tax bonds, to complete construction of a multi-use facility on city-owned land in an amount not to exceed $24 million. So it was about the wellness center at the time, but we did bond to build more than just the wellness facility, and that is a true statement. And I hope this is the beginning of the construction of our new 2-sheet ice arena. All right, moving on to item G, approval of creation of City Council Subcommittee to formulate recommendations regarding mayoral job expectations under the impending city manager form of government and to report such recommendations back to the full council. And this was put on at the request of the council president and vice president, so I'll leave it to you guys.
Thank you, Mayor. As the public and the council will know, at the last meeting, we formed a committee to define and delineate the role of the mayor going forward in the new form of government with the city manager. And after the formation of that committee, we ran into some difficulties regarding the makeup and the personnel on it. And in trying to find a resolution, I went searching for some answers, but the answers actually came to me in the form of the Home Rule Charter Commission. Several members of that committee actually reached out to me and said the mechanism for doing this was actually spelled out in the process and when the people of Watertown voted. It was actually spelled out in the proposal brought forward to the Home Rule Charter. So I thought that the best resolution was to go back to what the people of Watertown voted on, and that was spelled out in the Home Rule Charter presentation and what they voted on. So with that said, I think the best explanation would come from someone on the Home Rule Charter. Now, many people reached out to me, and as far as I know, they talked, and the person who came forward was the president of that committee. Kyle Lallam, reached out to me, and he's willing to just talk about how this was already spelled out. So the motion tonight will be to basically supersede the previous committee with a new committee formed tonight under the guideline of the Home Rule Charter Committee.
City attorney can probably share it.
So if you, thank you, Kyle Lallam. I am was the chairperson for the Home Rule Charter Review Committee, or commission that was formulated in 2019. So if we could pull up the actual Home Rule Charter document that is on the city's website, I can get it too if we need to. Yep, I'm happy to do that. You got it. Thank you, Heath. So, and the reason that I'm here is my co-chair, my vice chair, Byron Calise, who had agreed to serve on your guys' task force, is a volunteer and driving the Arrows to Aberdeen for basketball tonight, so he's unable to attend. So I am here in his stead. So, and part of the reason is that I'm here is I've been contacted myself as of late into why. Well, I'll just read the statement that I emailed to the council with some follow-up here. So if you could just bear with me for a second. And if you could pull up page 3 on that document. Heath, are you driving the bus on that? Thank you. So, so here's the email and the attachments. Which one of these is the attachment that I sent to all the council members yesterday? I said, Council, good afternoon and happy Martin Luther King Day. I've had a number of residents reach out to me inquiring about the city manager mayor positions as of late, and they have voiced concerns as to why the mayor would reference the need for office space for a new city manager as part of the justification for purchasing the Wells Fargo building. The comments mostly surrounded my public presentations where they were led to believe that the mayor would be a part-time position. I reminded them that our presentation did indicate a part-time position and salary adjustment to that effect, but the ultimate decision lied both for the duties and compensation lied strictly in the hands of the current city council members. If you have access to my Facebook page, I did record the presentation at the Watertown Event Center's Heritage Theater on June 6, 2019. It is under my pictures and videos. If you so choose to explore further, you could fast forward to about the 14-minute mark to get to one of the slides that I referenced in, or the attachment that I sent to the council members. Attached is some information for your consideration regarding the mayor and city manager positions, as I see it is on the agenda for tomorrow's meeting. One is a new survey completed by the ICMA, and just for a refresher for the council and for the citizens of Watertown, the ICMA is the International City County Managers Association. And that was a group that we relied heavily on as this Home Rule Charter Review Commission moved forward. For their expertise, insight, and contacts through city manager forms of government. I have highlighted a few sections in each of the documents to bring attention to what the voters of Watertown overwhelmingly approved at the ballot box. I've also included 3 shots of the PowerPoint presentation I made to at the public educational sessions, regarding the 2018 salary for council and part-time mayors in South Dakota operating under the city manager form of government. This information, in addition to what was verbally stated multiple times during public presentation, indicated that based on our surrounding communities with similar populations, the mayor position was part-time. I will reiterate that the position requirements and compensation rest solely as a council decision. And while there are full-time mayors in communities with city manager and council forms of government, those communities have populations in excess of 100,000 residents, i.e. Phoenix, Dallas, San Antonio, and Las Vegas. There's not a single weak mayor, city manager run government in South Dakota that has a full-time mayor. The reasoning behind that is spelled out and highlighted in the sections that I have attached. I hope this offers a reminder and some insight into what the community thought they were voting on versus what is being mentioned currently. I appreciate your time and commitment to our community, and thanks for all you do. So what I did was I pulled out, I went and I'd given Byron my entire packet when he was selected to serve on your subcommittee. And so I went back in and I pulled out your charter. So if you look at section 2.03, Mayor, right there, and you go down to the thereafter, the mayor shall have all the powers and duties of as a city council member, including the power to vote. In addition, the mayor shall preside at the meetings of city council, represent the city in intergovernmental relationships, appoint with the advice and consent of city council the members to citizens advisory boards, committees, and commissions, present the annual state of the city message, and perform other duties as specified by city council. So there it is. The mayor shall also be recognized as the head of government for all purposes and by the governor for purposes of military law. So the mayor under that form of government would be, if we had a flooding event where Mayor Karen was obviously instrumental in helping us navigate that, they would be, that position would be that point of contact. They would also be the point of contact for other mayors throughout the community or throughout the state and region if that's what they decided to do. And then you fast forward, Heath, to page 6 on this document. And at the bottom it says Article 3, the city manager, and it talks about Section 3.01, the appointment qualifications and compensation. Again, the city council, by an affirmative vote of the majority of city council members, shall appoint a city manager and fix manager's compensation. In the period following the adoption of the change of form of government and prior to the succeeding municipal election, the existing council may hire an individual whose appointment as city manager will become effective upon the commencement of the following city council election. Because in the Home Rule Charter, your document, your governing document, you've got a continuation of elected term clause that's in there, meaning that if the voters of Watertown wanted to have a special election to move to expedite the city manager role, and all of you would be up for re-election at that point, that's what it did. But we had a continuation of office clause that's in the document, and that's where it's at. So again, it's kind of spelled out in there. And then if you go to section page 7, Heath, section 3.05, powers and duties of the city manager, that's where it starts to talk about the duties of that individual, right? That position. It's all about the position. And that's why you hire that individual based on their experience, education, and knowledge of that, of running a municipal form of government. Just remember that the voters of Watertown approved this because of the efficiencies that we gain by hiring a professional, trained city manager. So it's all about the efficiencies. And this was a transformative vote for our community because the residents of Watertown and the council members have never operated under this form of government. So it's not about, it's all about what that position looks like going forward, right? All members of the governing body, all are and will be elected based on your goals, including all you as council members and anybody running for mayor. Because that form of government change within the Home Rule Charter triggers an election for all council members at that point. And that's why we staggered the 3 council wards, because we wanted to maintain that ward position. But we staggered it to the first, the three would have a 2-year term, and then after that it would go to 4-year terms. That's another reason that we wanted to raise the threshold for council attendance from 50% to 85%, because the governing body, which is the council and mayor going forward, need to be in tune for what the community wants, because you've hired a city manager to do the day-to-day operations and implement the policy, vision, and goals of the elected officials. So hopefully the elected officials, be one of the rationales behind having that threshold raised to 85% was so that the elected officials were in tune with what the voters and their constituents wanted. So that was one of the other things. So I mean, in my real estate business, I understand the confidential contractual negotiations, especially when you're talking about buying an existing building like the Wells Fargo. So that wasn't my position to tell anybody that reached out to me what that was. I get that. I also, in the development and construction side of my business, I see tremendous cost savings, and I think that the city got a tremendous purchase and buy on that Wells Fargo building. But to utilize the city manager not having an office as part of a justification for that, I think was cause for alarm, and that is why people reached out to me, and I'm assuming that they reached out to you as well, because that's not what we said. We indicated that it strictly lied in the council decision. However, we did put forward presentations and slideshows in there, and one of those slideshows, and I will leave this for you. I know that the council all has this form of government survey that ICMA put out, but one of the slides that we put up there when we were talking about part-time or pay scale for council and part-time mayors was that Aberdeen. We looked at 8 communities: Aberdeen, Brookings, Mitchell, Spearfish, Vermilion, and Yankton. I'm sorry, I'll put that back up so you can see that. Yeah. Where the highest paid mayor, part-time mayor, under that, at that time in 2018 was Mitchell, and their compensation was $34,113. Again, that was their council's decision to make. To put it into context, we interviewed Brookings city manager and mayor, part-time mayor, and their mayor made $9,600 in 2018. So here's the survey that I referenced and that I mailed out to you. It was a survey that actually came out right after the vote of the city of Watertown when they elected to change their form of government. So just a couple of high points that are in there that I'll put out, and obviously it's here. So the chief elected official, that would be the mayor position in this, as far as this document is concerned, the vast majority of chief elected positions are part-time and receive an annual salary or stipend. Local governments rarely place term limits on their chief elected officials, but those that do most often limit them to 2 terms. So we had that discussion as well. We looked at the, I'm sorry, I moved that. There you go. We had that discussion. So does your municipality in this survey have a mayor or council president or both? And so you can see the highlighted documents there. Full-time or part-time, 83.3% of the chief elected officials in your governing body is a part-time position. Is the chief elected official a member of council? Yes, because they've got full voting rights. Is your chief elected officials voted or voters elected directly? 75% of the respondents to that survey said yes. And then how long are the terms? And they're 4-year terms, which is exactly what the voters of Watertown mirrored in that regard. So another page to highlight to how many council positions are there. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
This seems a little bit deviated from the agenda item, which is approval of the creation of a subcommittee. And I mean, you're kind of going on and on about stuff that everybody knows.
Just wanted to make sure that there was a reminder that was set there, and I was asked to come, so I did. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, I'll leave this document and go about my volunteer business day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Councilman Holeen and Lallam, is there anything more that you wanted to say? We don't have a motion, but
Actually, I would like to make a motion so
Okay.
that we have something to debate. So the motion that I would like to make is to form a subcommittee comprised of city council members with the full consultation of our HR director, Jelaine Pifley, to meet to discuss and bring back recommendations regarding mayoral job expectations in the incoming city manager form of government. So this subcommittee would be comprised of city council members, because that's what was spelled out in the Home Rule Charter Commission when it was voted on by the city of by the citizens of Watertown. So I think this would be the best way. And I want to stress that this subcommittee would also invite and welcome all input from citizens who wanted to come forward and speak. Because that is also an incredibly important component to this as to what they want to see in a mayor, and that. Now, we could do this as a full city council because that's what was spelled out in the Home Rule Charter, but for the sake of time and efficiency, I think it would be better to do a subcommittee, and then the subcommittee brings it back to a full council discussion with their recommendation, and then we can discuss at that point, you know, do we want to do this or do we want to do that? That's my motion, is to form a subcommittee comprised of city council members with the full consultation of our HR director, Jelaine Pifley.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
A motion by Helene and a second by Lallam. And
No, I don't.
are you talking about naming the committee members now or waiting until a later date?
I would welcome volunteers. We could also just comprise it of the people who were previously on the last one. Might be easiest, which would be,
Were there other council members that were left out that might want to be on that committee? So we had Beth, Reed,
Bruce, Dan, and me.
Glenn, and Dan. Does
oh,
anybody
Glenn,
else?
Glenn, Bruce, Dan, Beth, and myself.
Does anybody else want to be on it? Michael?
Sure.
Are we gonna have
Councilman
issues, Mayor, with?
Well, then we would need to, if we go up to 6, we would have to, then it's no longer a subcommittee.
Should we draw names out of a hat?
We sure can.
Who else wants to be on it?
Unless someone wants to drop out.
Or do we want to just have, can we do a discussion first
Yeah, sure.
before we start appointing?
Sure.
I'm just a little confused on this because isn't it kind of spelled out in the charter? Isn't that what the Home Rule Charter group did, was kind of already spelled this out? I feel like it's pretty clear in here. What are we further defining? The part-time thing?
Are you trying to cap the number of hours that a mayor would spend?
I personally, if the mayor wants to work full-time hours, that's up to whoever the mayor is.
Right, it's a salary position, isn't it? I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, but the duties are way more important than the time put in, because we only have one chance to do this revision or change of government right. And during the Home Rule Commission hearings, they heard, and I have studied, that this form of government can implode when there's confusion as to who has responsibilities and ultimate authority over certain issues. That's all we're trying to do, is demarcate who has ultimate say in issues regarding the city. Is it the city manager or is it the mayor? Because, and that's all we're trying to do, is I liken it to the line, good fences make good neighbors. The best way that we can service the community of Watertown by making a seamless transition of government is to specifically spell out what powers the mayor has and what powers the city manager has. I don't care how much the mayor works. The mayor can work 24/7 for all I care. We've already set the pay scale, so we've got that. But I'm way more concerned that the mayor and the city manager are not stepping on each other's toes.
Right, so you want to further define what administrative means, because it's pretty clear in the charter that the city manager is responsible for all administrative duties, and the mayor is responsible for no administrative duties. And that's really the line in the sand, and where I see the council blurring that occasionally, and I have to remind you that you're not interacting with the employees and that sort of thing. Which then it becomes quasi-administrative. And I mean, I personally, I'm all for making sure that the public understands, so we don't get somebody running for mayor that thinks that they can come in and tell employees what to work on and make certain projects a priority for certain departments or anything like that, because that would strictly be off limits. But I think the charter's a good guide for whatever it is. And I don't think that you should cap the hours. It doesn't sound like you want to cap the hours. And it certainly could be somebody with a full-time job can definitely run for mayor and be the mayor. And somebody can spend 10 hours a week or 5 hours a week or 50 hours a week. That's all up to the individual running. What they can't do is just decide that they're going to tell the Park and Rec director how to do his job or anything like that. And so, I mean, I've been kind of confused. That's why I didn't put this on the agenda. I let the council members put it on the agenda. I don't really think it needs to be done, but if you want to clarify it, I'm all for that. Councilman Bueller?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is, in my discussions I've had with other communities that have mayors and this form of government with city manager, I think they oftentimes it seems they've run into problems where they don't have definitive powers on both sides of that fence. I think for us, I think it's going to be important for the council, especially for the council, to know what those duties and activities are. Also for the city manager and the mayor themselves, both to know what direction they can go, what the guidelines are for them. I think that's important. And you had mentioned too, for people that are maybe entertaining the idea of becoming the mayor. So, and maybe the decision of the committee is that, hey, we got everything we need, that's good. But it might not be. You had made a list of that you provided for all of us at some point to check off where you thought the mayor should have responsibilities or the city manager. There might be industrial development activities where the mayor might be involved with that. So, I think we just need to look at it and make sure that at the end of the day, those entities know exactly what their duties and responsibilities are. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Councilman Lallam.
Thank you, Mayor. What we envision, or what I envisioned, was basically just a clarification, which I've had plenty of the members of our community come up to us and ask and call and things of that nature. What that task force or what this subcommittee comes up with is simply clarification. It's about the job. It's not about the person. It's really more what are the expectations from the city council's expectations for that mayor's position going to be. There might be something that comes out of there that frankly we never would have thought of, and I think that our community, as we go forward, they demand to know what the job descriptions are, and I would assume that would probably somewhat include what the council's job description is as well. I believe we have all met with our recruiter for the new city manager. She recommended that not only the mayor have essentially assigned job description, but council as well. So it might be just one step to move forward towards the rest of it. Thank you.
Councilman Vilhar?
Just a couple of comments. I followed every one of the Home Rule Charter Review Committee meetings as well as Kyle Lallam's presentations. I sat in through all of those. Just a couple of comments. I don't think this group can, I think it's a good idea. I don't think it can do any harm. Because I think there is some concern out there in the community as far as what the expectations are as far as the mayor as well as city manager. You're right, Michael. I think our home rule charter is a very good starting point to look at what we as a voters voted on, because I think a lot of us are getting hung up, and the public maybe too, are getting hung up on that part-time versus full-time designation. That is not what we voted on when we went to the ballot box back in 2019. Part-time, full-time is not used at all on the ballot. So I think we're getting hung up on that. So, but by the same token, I don't think it would hurt for a group of us to get together that have been following this process very closely, just to review what we think the expectation should be as far as our mayor as well as we as a council, because like I say, we are hearing concerns from the public or questions from the public as far as what this is going to look like going forward. And we want to get this right the first time around. There's no doubt about that. So I'm all in favor of it, but I think our home rule charter does go a long way already in explaining what the expectations and duties are, but I'd be in favor of looking at it.
Anyone else? Councilman Holeen?
I just wanted to make one point clear is nothing that the subcommittee determines is final say. It just is brought back to the full council, and everyone in the council and anyone in the community who hears the committee's recommendation can come and testify at that point, if not at one of the meetings. So this isn't the final say. This is a recommendation, hopefully to just provide for a better transition into a different form of government that the people of Watertown overwhelmingly voted to support.
Right, and I supported it too. I think it's a good idea to clarify what the expectations are for everybody. So, we ready to vote?
Do we need clarification on the committee members?
Oh, okay. I have little strips of paper. If you would like to be on this committee, we've got 6 so far. I'll just name them off. We've got Albertson,
Yes.
Holeen, Bueller, Manti,
I think we're drawing names.
Poyer. I spelled your name wrong. And there's one, I'm missing one. Hillhauer, sorry, Glenn. Anybody else wanting to serve on this committee? Heads shaking. Okay, so.
I would recommend our Watertown Community Foundation Director, Jan DeBerg, draw the names from a hat.
We have a hat. We have a garbage can.
Actually, maybe not a hat in this age of COVID, but draw the names, let's put it that way.
Yeah, we'll just draw, why don't we just draw one name to eliminate?
Oh, that would be much better.
And the name drawn out will be eliminated. Yeah, that works. Let me, give me a couple more sheets of paper. Shake those up. Just draw one. This will be the person that's not on the committee. It's Councilwoman Manti. So we have an all-guy committee.
That's okay.
Again. So
It's
I
okay.
like things to be balanced, but that's the way it goes.
I know, but I'll come and make input
Sorry,
as a
for
citizen.
the
How's
sake of
that?
there
No, I'm
being a
just kidding.
female perspective on there, I will withdraw my name from that committee. Beth, you go ahead and stay. I'd rather there be more representation.
Michael, you're a good guy. You're a
I would
good guy.
also,
Whatever you guys want.
yeah, and definitely, Michael, we'd welcome your input. Thank you for being chivalrous and honorable there. I would also request if anyone on the committee wants to be the chair, by all means, say something. I would do it, but I don't need to.
Okay, well, you can meet and elect your chairperson. Let's take a vote. So, all those in favor of the creation of the committee is defined, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Okay, item H is update and discussion on the design of the downtown plaza and consideration for the future use of the senior building. And this is just an update. There's no action. I'll ask the Public Works Director, Heath Von Eye, to kick it off for us.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Some general context here to the discussion tonight is that, as you know, we formed a subcommittee for the design of the what we've been referring to as the downtown park. That design, those committee meetings have progressed now, where we held an initial kickoff meeting with the entire committee, which includes downtown business owners, Watertown Development Company, city staff, developers, and business owners of the like. The committee met initially and then pursued to have a public open house meeting where the public was invited to log on to a virtual meeting for information sharing purposes, both directions from the city and to receive information from the public for input on the park. And then the committee met again for a second time here just last week to discuss the public input and the findings and the progress of the design. Where we're at now today is that we're kind of at a juncture in the road where the city needs to start making some decisions regarding our city property and what that should look like in the future moving forward with the park design. The park design can begin to utilize or not utilize portions of city property depending on how we want to manage that property or what we want to do with it. The property specifically in question is the building location of the current senior center, and how that should be incorporated or not incorporated into any reconstruct or demo in relation to the park's design. Note online, we have John Jacobson with Confluence. He's our project lead from our consultant side of things. And Justin Peterson, the assistant city engineer, has been helping with that project management on the city side. And then also here tonight, Chris Shilkin actually asked to have this conversation with us to try to help start the conversation on what to do with the city property. And of course, Jan's here as well, not only to draw the name this evening, but to participate in this discussion. So I'll hand it over to Chris, if that's okay with you, Mayor, and
absolutely
discuss further.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Heath, for the background. During some of these conversations, it was becoming pretty clear that, this is moving forward, and we want to team this up, and I believe developer Jesse Craig is on the phone too, where we go back to the original idea of building a new senior center and generations, and then revamping the old senior center to go with the new apartment building that's going to be built where the Palace apartment is. So these talks started escalating during the discussion of the layout of the design of the park, and I believe we sent over 4 recommendations that have been vetted through the steering committee, and they're ranging from a larger public space that could be used where the senior center's at in tandem with the Ruins project, or all the way down to the original plan, which was trade out in lieu of or in trade for building a new senior center, that the old senior center could be used for the Ruins project, and that would provide some public space, some smaller public space, such as bathrooms and different things for the park. After our last call, it felt like we were kind of at a tipping point of, we're on 3 different calls, and it was the same conversation over and over, that we needed to make some decisions moving forward, or at least have some discussion with some quick decisions, because I believe the timing of the Palace coming down is February 1st. And in order to kind of keep everything rolling along and keep these visions and projects happening, a decision needs to be made shortly on what's going to happen with the current senior center building. Overwhelmingly, in the responses, removing of the senior center building was favored, since it would be a hindrance to the park design, and also back to the original idea of what we proposed a year ago to have happen on that site. And also as a building that will no longer be needed with a new senior center being built, it just would be a nice new design and concept there. So I'll certainly let Jan weigh in. I know when we first talked about this sitting upstairs, we looked over and we saw the Palace, and we said, well, that needs to go for a park to be successful. Since then, it's kind of snowballed into, the Generations projects, which provided a new senior center, which opened up the possibility for the old senior center to be removed and incorporated in a brand new development. I also want to say, too, that it seems this is just more of a pitch for Watertown in general. We have a lot of stuff going on, if you haven't noticed. I mean, our vision is becoming reality with what we set out with downtown, and to me, this is one of the highlights that the Charette pointed out, H2020 pointed out, much like the ice arena. We have commitment from outside money for this project, and it's really nice that it's coming to this head here and moving forward. So with that, if Jan wants to add anything, and open it up for John or Jesse to add in too, so.
I really don't have much to say other than the Watertown Area Community Foundation is excited. Okay. I'm sorry about that. I don't have much to say other than to tell you that the Watertown Area Community Foundation is very excited about the project. We're looking at the designs, and the surveys have brought back good information. The steering committee is working hard, but to certainly agree with Chris that we are kind of at a stopping point now in those discussions and with that design, waiting on knowing whether that space will be usable as originally we thought it would be, and have public restrooms and some other public space available in it, which I think really sets the downtown park Foundation Plaza up for success.
One thing I forgot to add thanks Jen for commenting there is, like I like to say, we're in a once in a generation type development process here in Watertown, and specifically downtown Watertown. I don't think we'll see this type of activity for quite a while. So, we're getting close to, once all projects are announced and completed, right around 50 million or over in just downtown capital from investors and developers into downtown Watertown. And I've always said, we're at this time where let's use this time to do some things right, to team up with the partners and make that investment to make it the best thing. We don't want to have anything where it comes back and 5 years later we're like, oh, I wish we would have did that, and it's too late. So I think the options out there have been vetted through the steering committee and other public input. So just want to throw that out there and also open up to John and or Jesse on the line.
Thank you, Chris. This is John Jacobson with Confluence, and I just want to reiterate kind of the foundation that Chris laid out and Jan laid out for everybody, and with Heath's introduction, that was kind of a good mile marker of where we're at right now. I think the important thing to note is we've gone through a good process to get public input to make this space very unique towards Watertown and the goals that you want to accomplish as a community. And so where we're at in the process is it's time for us to begin kind of what we call design development, and that is put more detail into the plan, start working on some of the materials that it's going to be constructed out of, putting together our up-to-date cost estimates and those kind of things, just like you would do with a building project. So with that, then the senior center site is just one of the pieces that needs to fall into place for us to continue our job, in the fact that we just need to know how it's going to be incorporated into the plaza project. Will the building remain and we just have to deal with it? That's as one potential option. A second option is the city decides that you would just like to incorporate the building parcel into the plaza, and we remove it and construct some different public improvements there as part of the plaza project. Or third, it gets incorporated into Jesse's adjacent redevelopment project to help accommodate some public space, as Chris mentioned, like restrooms and those types of things. So we're kind of just at that point where we need the council's input and direction on how they would like us to proceed. So I just want to kind of set that up for everybody. I'm happy to answer more questions in detail in anything that you would like to know.
Okay.
Thanks, John. And while we're going through that, I think one thing to note was the original plan. I think, visiting with Jesse and some others is, on the senior center building itself, I think February 1st was kind of a date as they wanted to get started on some design and taking down the Palace building. So I think at a minimum for the next council meeting, we kind of want to get a good feeling of, are we willing to commit to the original plan of at least allowing the senior setting building to be incorporated into the Ruins project, and then probably shortly after that decide to what level of public space the city would want based on some of the feedback and plans that John has come up with from there. So open it up for questions if you guys have any. But I think obviously not a motion needed tonight, but I think at the next council meeting we'd like to have some direction on at least the senior center building being allowed to be incorporated into Jesse's new project there.
All right. I did forward the options to the council yesterday that Jesse gave me yesterday. So they haven't had a lot of time to look it over. And I think this, if any of them have a question, this would be a fair time to ask. Councilman Roby?
Thank you, Mayor. It's been a while since we discussed some of these options. I just want to confirm again, the building that's there, there's not a lot of use for that. It's old, it's a little under maintained maybe. I've always been under the impression that there's not a lot of value in that building. Is that still a fair assessment?
I think that's true. I think we just replaced the roof a couple years ago, and the seniors couldn't afford it, so the city did pay for that. And there was some structural work done on it, but it's a cinder block wall building. It's not a very nice building.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I recall, and not being a lot of, didn't seem a lot of potential for that, and that's why I was always kind of excited about getting it worked into the overall project.
Councilman Vilhar?
I've got a few questions for whomever. I'll just throw them out. I guess the bigger question in my mind is, not being part of the design team or whatever you're calling yourselves, we've kicked around a $2 million ballpark estimate for cost. Is that still in the realm of what the expectations are after looking at some of the preliminary designs?
Councilman, yes, we're still working. The current program is to work somewhere approximately in a $2.1 million project. That said, if depending upon the ultimate direction for the decision that's made on the senior center site, the demolition of that building and the construction of public bathrooms in lieu of that building were not part of the original budget. So depending upon the ultimate direction of things, we might have to make some adjustments to keep it at a $2.1 million project.
Okay. Maybe to clarify though, too, the original plan did provide a little bit of public space and bathrooms at no cost to the city in exchange for that area. So there's kind of a two-way option there as well.
Okay.
I thought the cost was $1 million.
That's for the one that came back from feedback from the committee, which is 10,000 square feet. If you go back to the original plan, it was like 1,200 square feet of public space to be used for warming house and bathrooms that would be in the Ruins project in exchange for the senior center location.
For you.
Yes.
Jesse's option number 4, and I realize that the public doesn't know what I'm referring to. Council members have had a chance to at least review this a little bit. Would Jesse be tearing down the senior center? Would he be responsible for demolition?
Jesse, you on the line there?
Yeah, Jesse Craig here, Craig Development. Yes, I would be responsible for taking down the senior center. That would be my cost that would be incurred, as well as putting the bathrooms in and the storefronts and things like that for the warming space. Okay,
thanks, Jesse. In the options that were laid out to us, there were several references made to storage space. Okay, what kind or how big of a factor is storage space needs in the conversation relative to the senior building?
So from a plaza programming standpoint, Councilman, we feel like the type of activities that are going to occur in this space in order to kind of keep it flexible is going to need a variety of elements to kind of come in and out of it. So thinking of, winter decorations, holiday type decorations, summer type temporary play items and activities and those kind of things. So some storage adjacent to the space is certainly very helpful from an operations and programming standpoint, but not necessary.
Okay, thank you, John. One last question, then I'll give up the floor. I guess I'm going to refer this one to Matt. Let's say that we were to look at option number 4, which would be, and I'll just read the first sentence or so. In exchange for Jesse Craig buying and removing the Palace Apartments and building a new senior center, the city will deed the current senior citizens center and land and vacate and deed to be used. Okay, so we're going to be, in effect, deeding that over to Jesse. I guess legality or procedurally, how do we or can we do that as effectively a public entity, giving real estate to a private individual?
Procedurally, that would have to be deemed an economic development project and could be facilitated through a negotiated sale with the Watertown Development Company acting as the intermediary.
Okay, thanks, Matt. That's all for my questions.
Yes, Councilman Holane.
A question and then a comment. So a question for probably Jesse, but one of you two. When do you need the council to make up their minds on this?
This is Jesse Craig. So what we're running into is that in order for us to keep our timeline with the park, we need to kind of know by February 1st whether I'm going to be able to receive the senior center and vacate the alley. And the reason for that is it's if you can imagine how long John and the steering committee has been working on the park thus far, I need enough time to be able to design, once the decision's made on this, to design and engineer and bid out for the construction of the Ruins project. And if I don't get that decision in a timely manner by like February 1 for the basic decision, I'm going to fall behind the park. The park can be built and put together pretty quickly compared to a 60-unit apartment complex.
And just to clarify, when you say the basic, that's option number 4 that Glenn read, correct?
Yeah, and what I'm referring to in number 4 is kind of, I guess, the overall consensus, or I guess what I had thought was the agreement moving forward. I mean, it was the whole reason why I bought the Palace Apartments was to get rid of all the sex offenders and bud bugs and all that things to make sure that a park was going to occur. And then I then in turn worked with the senior center extensively to get them to agree to look at a new space. I then bought the property for the Generations on First project, and I'm now, in the midst of building a new senior center for them, which again they'll receive that, close to 12,000 square foot building free of charge, or I guess it's $1 a year for 99 years. So this was just the last part of that intricate dance, if you will, of moving all this real estate around and building these projects.
So that option 4, Jesse, doesn't include the $1 million contribution by the city. Is that correct? It's
No.
The only financial part
That's
is
correct.
$1 per year?
Yep. No, that's correct. And what's come about from the steering committee, and John can kind of maybe weigh in on this, is it just seems like the steering committee and the public input was that they but would prefer to have more public space. And, being involved in those steering committee conversations, one of the things that came about was that, if there's not space for people to go in and get warm or do things throughout the year, that's going to be a pretty desolate park in the winter. So 1,200 square feet, yes, it takes care of bathrooms and a warming house for ice skate rental, but I think if a person looks at the other uses that that park can be used for, unless there's adequate public space for other events, other things to happen, it's gonna quiet it down quite a bit, and that's what we want. We want that to be a focal point of downtown to bring in families and tourists throughout the year.
So the city could either own that and rent that space out, or you could own it and rent that space out, and you're kind of offering it to the city, so we have control over it if we want to buy it for $1 million.
Yeah, for me, I build apartments and commercial space and things like that. For me to be involved in trying to orchestrate events along with renting out public space or things of that nature, it wouldn't work out very well. I could see a lot of confusion with that. Whether it's the foundation or the city or WDC that would operate that park and line up the events for it. If they had control of that public space, I think it would just flow a lot better. But that's just my input. I think John could probably weigh in on that a little bit more because he's done quite a few of these throughout the country.
Thanks, Jesse. I think it's much like the overall problem is much just like the direction that we need to take on the overall resolution for the senior center site. I think that there's a number of options which the council can proceed to go. And to us, as your consultant, our base recommendation would be to work with Jesse and the adjacent redevelopment to, at a minimum, provide space for bathrooms and some sort of storage area. From a programming standpoint, and that's where I think the discussion about the multi-use facility and the ICE discussion, it was really important prior to this. From a programming standpoint in the plaza, we received a number of comments that a lot of members of the community wanted to get that resolved. So that they knew that refrigerated ice was going to go somewhere else other than this space. Because if you remember, refrigerated ice was not part of our budget for this project as well. So I say that just because kind of to bring you full circle in the fact that we've received a lot of input. So at a base level, we want to make sure that we have restrooms and some storage. If there was to be additional space incorporated into the redevelopment project, that could be ran by a community facilitator, whether that's the foundation or whoever, that provided rentable space for artists, or being able to rent it for different shops, be able to rent it for get-togethers, having some indoor play and those kind of things. Those are all uses that are just going to make the plaza space that much more successful over time as a destination. And so we would really have to work with Jesse in that case over the course of the development of his plans and see what kind of square footage could be accommodated. But it's not necessary, it's just an extra. The bathrooms and some storage space, from my perspective, are what's necessary. And that's, as Chris mentioned, that's what was in the original concept to be provided that we were kind of working under when we started this project.
Thank you. Councilman Hoyer?
I would just kind of tie it back a little bit. I think this is a lot of where, for some of us, we've gone with it never was an either or with the ice arena, because if we do that really well and we do that correctly with refrigerated ice, that meets that need. Seeing us do refrigerated ice in the outdoor park is pretty challenging, just because that cost, as you guys know, is just nuts. But that being the case, I mean, looking at that space, and if we approached it, I know it's mentioned in here, the indoor play thing. I mean, that's something you almost might be able to court for a donor on to help assist with that, because Watertown doesn't have anything like that either, where those of us with young children look for things to do in the winter, and a essentially free to the public indoor play area for your kids would be a heck of a thing. I know the rec center works for some people, but for some of us that don't make over 30,000, it's a little harder to facilitate that. But it definitely opens up some consideration. I know that I stand still fine with handing off the senior center, just because there isn't a great plan for it right now anyway. This facilitates us potentially having a really good growth option here.
Yeah, and to add to Mr. Hoyer's comments, I think the economic impact of taking a non-tax producing property and putting on a $10+ million property over time will obviously give back to what what these projects are supposed to do long term, is create taxable value, more tax base. So on top of all the things we just mentioned, I mean, that to me is one of the biggest ones, is you're taking city property and turning it into a tax paying project. So
I believe Councilwoman Manti has a question.
Oh, go ahead, Beth.
More of a comment than anything, and Chris kind of answered it right as I was ready to ask it, but I'll make the comment anyway. I too had always thought that the senior center would go to Jesse and become part of his project, so that in turn his project would become part of our project, and kind of on and on. But I agree, we don't have a real good plan for the senior center. We are starting to put together a very good plan for the park. And so if we can, my feeling is if we can facilitate this one step sooner than later, then we can continue on the process of the rest of the planning. But I'm hearing from Jesse that this has to happen soon so that he doesn't miss his February 1st deadline for getting his project organized. So I personally don't know what we would do with that senior citizen center. And as Chris said, that was my point too, was that let's put it into something more productive. It's a building that's outlived its usefulness, and now we have an opportunity to take that property and do something with it that is really going to be a benefit to downtown, and as Chris said, put it back on the tax rolls.
Councilman Holeen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just as a point of personal preference, I always thought it was not called Downtown Park. I always thought it was Watertown Community Foundation Plaza. So Foundation Plaza, I like the name better than Downtown Park.
Yeah, Foundation Plaza.
It's probably rebranding it is probably a good idea with all the discussion. But with that said, I want to say something because I think in the public people view me as an opponent to this. I'm not. I was an opponent to certain aspects of it, like the downtown tax, but that's overdone with. Let's focus upon what we can do for Watertown. So making this facility, this Foundation Plaza, and then the ruins next to it, better is what we really need to do for Watertown. Just if you're going to do it right. We hear it all the time in this community. And I really do believe that. So things like this get me excited for it. I mean, I know that I had the viewpoint of being an opponent, but I'm not. And partly because I sat in on that last meeting and I'm going, okay, they're doing it right. This is good stuff. And this is even better stuff. So I am really excited about what you guys are doing and what this could do for the community. I do have one problem, however. I really do believe I'm a stickler for letting the public have input. This was brought to us. The public really doesn't know about it. And if we need to make a decision before February 1st, I really do believe the public should at least have an opportunity to weigh in on this and mention it. Now, that's my personal belief. If the rest of the council doesn't agree with that, that's fine. But
quick background. So yeah, February 1st would have the hearing, so you could get the agenda item out. But I also think too, John, what were we at? 250 to 300 responses of the survey. Does that seem an accurate number? Maybe it's more since then, but.
No, that's correct.
Yeah, so I mean, when you look at public input on a survey result, that was made public and different things. But yeah, so on February 1st, it'd be an agenda item, much like the hearing, but.
Yeah, I agree. It needs to go to the public. That's an important step. Councilman Lallam, did you want to say something?
Yeah, and I think to Reed's point, what we're looking at is just that they have a chance to look over what we were given yesterday. So it's not just
right.
Just thrown out there and we make a rash. Well, not really a rash decision. We've heard this before, but it's something that we need to do. Is February 1st is we have a council meeting then. Does he need it by that day or before that day, or?
Well, on that day would be nice for timing, but I think you're right. That's why we had his discussion tonight, because on the call on last Thursday, it just felt like it was just becoming stagnant, not going anywhere. So I called Heath. I said, we need to get this discussion going, and that's why we asked for discussion tonight for follow-up on the first meeting in February.
So we can make a decision on that first meeting?
Yep,
okay.
Correct. With all the public input and agenda item notice and all that.
Okay.
Yes.
Chris, as a follow-up comment, we had 620 individual responses to the public survey.
I was way off. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
If I could, I was remiss in mentioning that Terry Kelly, Park and Rec Director, is also online with us today. He's also been involved with these committee meetings. So from a park operational standpoint, I believe he's been able to provide input. And then from a staffing standpoint, I would just echo what John went into detail with. I think having those restrooms and some storage capacity at this facility would be at a minimum what we'd want to target to do. Now, whether we feel there's other meeting space that's needed, I think that need's gone away a little bit without the ice component. but still could be an amenity that the community would like to have at this park. But I think at a minimum, focusing on those restrooms and storage would be critical to address that. And Jesse and the team and John at Confluence have laid out these options here, 1 through 4, as spelled out. One other point of clarity, and John can maybe help expand on this. I don't believe that the survey, John, necessarily was specific in identifying what we're doing with this other public parcel, i.e. the senior center. I think that it showed renditions of where the building would go, but I don't think it necessarily got specific on, the city and doing anything in a public-private partnership or anything like that. Is that correct, John?
Yes, Heath, you're correct. What the main insight into that space through the development of the project just dealt with different options for using that space, whether it was to remain, whether it was to become part of the plaza, or whether it was to become part of Jesse's redevelopment project. And the bulk of the preferred options and feedback that we received was to have it be integrated into the redevelopment project. So you're right, but there was not a specific question asked as to how should we deal with that city-owned parcel.
And I only mentioned that, Mayor, just to emphasize.
The reason I moved the senior center was to utilize the senior center. That was the only reason that I did move the seniors into their new building now. So from over a year ago, that was the initial plan that I was using, or I was relying on from the city.
All right. Were you?
I was just going to say, I only mentioned that, Mayor, just to emphasize Councilman Holene's concern for having that public input in a clear manner, expressly related to this.
Thank you. Yes. Councilman Albertson?
Thanks, Mayor. I just realized that sitting here listening to talking about this Foundation Plaza, which I think is really exciting for Watertown. I think it's got some huge potential. One of the things I'm wondering is, has Terry Kelly, the Park and Rec, have they been involved with this, John? Because I can kind of sense some Park and Rec facility type things that are going to be involved here when you start talking about some of these things. So,
thank you, Councilman. At the risk of speaking for Terry, he's been part of our steering committee and has been very involved in all the discussion, Councilman, to the point where I think at a few moments he's felt like maybe he's talked too much. And his input has been really important and has been really good for us to hear and for the steering committee to hear and the public to hear as we've been going through the process. So he's been very integrated and supportive of it.
Thank you.
Very good. Councilman Vilhar?
I've got a question for you, Jesse. Just to make sure I'm clear in my mind, on February 1st when we meet, let's say that we decide that we're going to turn that facility or the senior building over to you. How specific do we need to be at that meeting as far as what our needs are going to be?
I think I'd have to talk to Matt Roby on that to make sure that there's some language in that agreement that I'm going to be working closely with John Jacobson from Confluence to make sure that he and I, or mainly him, is reporting back to the City Commission, and that he's achieving everything that he wants to or needs to in regards to that park to make it the best that it can be. I'm not interested, the reason I took on the Palace and the reason that I took on building a new senior center and things like that was for the overall success and revitalization of downtown Watertown. I think I've stepped up and done everything that I committed that I said I would, and I'm going to continue to do that. But that said, I think just like every one of our developer agreements, there's got to be some type of language in there that makes sure the city's protected, that they're getting what they need out of that park, and or if they decide to go with public space, the initial kind of structure of that, be it a lease, and who's taking care of the exterior, interior, things of that nature. But I think I've worked really well with Matt Roby in the past. and been very successful in those agreements on other projects, and I don't see that changing on this one.
Okay, thanks, Jesse.
Very good. Councilman Lallam?
For the sake of time on this one, I think Matt can actually go through and, maybe put a couple different options for us, and then we can discuss that at that February 1st meeting, and then we can get a definitive answer.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's what the goal is, get discussion, then I get the ball rolling February 1st, kind of lay out some of the things so we can get rolling on the project.
Who's on that steering committee from a council level?
Bruce, Beth, and Michael.
Okay. Maybe, I'm sure they could reach out to the members of the council as to maybe what way they're leaning, not to have a full discussion ahead of time, but to just which way they feel their point it would be, and then we can direct Matt on that at your discretion.
Jesse Craig here again, real quick. With that February 1st, that's just making the decision if I were to get the senior center and be able to vacate the alley. From there, we've got another 2 to 3 weeks to define the public space. I just need to make sure that I have my footprint down for the overall apartment building structure, and then we can define the public space over the next 2-3 weeks.
Okay. Is the sewer that you've been talking back and forth about, is that that's in the road, not in the alley, right?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
There's
That's
nothing in the
3rd
alley.
Street.
Is there anything in the alley?
I believe there are utilities there, but not city, WMU utilities.
Right, and Bert and Jesse have been trading quite a few emails on utilities in the alley.
Okay.
Yep.
It's a T alley, so I can't imagine
Right.
it goes very far.
Right.
All right, anyone
It's
else?
actually the main trunk.
What's
yeah,
that?
It's the main trunk line that actually runs. That's the main trunk line that runs down along that alley, right beside the palace, all the way to Kemp. So
Trunk
it's,
line of
it's,
what?
All upwards of $90,000 to move those.
Trunk line of what?
Trunk line for electricity.
In the alley?
Yes.
Dead ends? Comes to the T? Okay. Well, as long as you're aware, that stuff has to be moved, and,
Yeah, Watertown Municipal. Yeah, Watertown Municipal Utilities loves me.
Well, and being in a T alley, that means it runs east and west in the other alley, and it runs east and west in Kemp, and it runs north and south on the streets. It can probably just be abandoned, and hopefully they can not have a huge expense. But I guess that's for utilities to decide. Anybody have any other questions or comments?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if I could get a point of clarity from Mr. Craig in reference to the alley to be vacated. 2 questions there. One, Jesse, are you referring specifically to the north-south alley on the west side of your property? Or are you also referring to the east-west alley on the north side of the senior center?
No, east-west has to stay open because that has to be a delivery line that goes all the way for the county fair, or was it family fair, county fair? County fair. County fair grocery store. So they need to be able to get their semis in and out of there. So this is just the north-south, or the north-south alley that runs along the palace.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And then second question was, are those 2 actions mutually exclusive in your mind? Would you take the alley if the council were not in favor of the senior center, for example, or do you need them both to make progress with your project?
I need them both because I need to span that alley.
Okay, thanks.
It'd have to be a L configuration. Yep, thanks, sir.
All right. There's nothing else. Thank you for your input, and thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Jan and Chris.
You bet. Thanks. Thanks, John.
Yep.
Jesse, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, John, for coming. Appreciate it. Item I is review of the continued necessity of resolution number 20-15 declaring an emergency concerning the pandemic outbreak of the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, and providing for responsive measures related to the operations of the city and protection of public health. And so we have this on our agenda at every council meeting, and bring it up and just for the council to review in case they want to make any changes to it. I see Councilman Albertson has his hand up. Dan, did you want to say something?
I did. Thank you, Mayor. I think we all got the letter from one of our people that use the wellness center on a regular basis. And then it was in the paper, of course, about it. So is there something that we should be doing with the wellness center in the sense of helping them to enforce a mandate of, just like Dr. Sherman had said in his letter to the news, in the newspaper? I know I reached out to Terry Kelly and he said that it's very difficult, even though they have the sign up there, to make people wear the masks on certain places where it's obvious they could and should without too much difficulty. Should we be taking a stand and saying, you know, it's a community facility, and why can't we do more about people wearing masks? You know, we're hoping it's short term. On the other hand, we don't want this to be an outbreak center if we do have a lot of people that aren't adhering to the no mask or the masking policy.
Right. Well, and wherever you go, there are people who knowingly don't wear a mask, even though they're closer than 6 feet apart and they're indoors. And I mean, I didn't want to put the staff in the position of trying to be the police, because people become belligerent. And I want the council input on this. I've asked Terry to put up more signs at the wellness center, and Terry, I'd like your input on this as well. I know that extra signs were produced and placed up there, and I asked a citizen if there's been any change, and they said no. And I think, you know, there are just people that don't feel the need to comply with the resolution, and I don't know what to do about that. But Terry, what are you seeing at the wellness center?
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. Maybe 5% more usage since we increased our signage. What we're seeing is, you know, people now, they read into the fine print. They basically know that the way we have it written, it's not a mandate. You know, we encourage. Our staff's done a much better job at the front desk. If the question is asked, you know, do I need to wear a mask? We've trained the staff to say, if you are able to wear a mask, yes, we expect you to wear a mask. But they have learned kind of, if they don't, we don't have the teeth, we feel, to do anything beyond just recommend that they do. So my conversations, you know, as Councilman Albertson alluded to earlier, is, you know, if that's what the council wants to do, that's the direction, obviously, myself and the staff will follow. But right now we feel handcuffed. We agree that the usage is probably 25% of what it should be. If you're walking on a track or doing light cardio workout, a mask should be, in my opinion, mandated to be worn. I understand heavy cardio, you're running some of your big workouts, you know, it is difficult to breathe, and maybe there's an option for that. But people have just got to the point where they know we can't do a whole lot to tell them, and you have your wet mask wearers and you have the ones that don't. And that's kind of what we're facing, Mayor and Council, as far as we really don't feel we have the teeth to really demand that they do it. So I'll ask any other questions for me.
Thank you. Councilman Hoyer?
Do we have any other clothing policies currently in place at the Wellness Center?
As far as clothing?
Well, right. My point is, if somebody came in there not wearing something appropriate, what would you do?
You know, we have certain areas, you know, our pool require, you know, obviously bathing suits, we require shoes in certain areas. So yeah, I mean, we do have some kind of background in recommend or requirements on clothing.
Sure.
So yeah, I see where you're going with that. So.
Well, I just feel like when they come in the front door, we
certain
screen them anyway. They have cards they have to check in with. If they're not wearing a mask and proper clothing, then you have a policy in place. They're not following it. You politely ask them to either comply with the policy or you won't be able to use the facility. Yes, I mean, that's easy to get around too, of course. You just wear it in and then go to where you're going to go, and then they could get around it that way. But I mean, if you need teeth, I mean, that's probably the best you can do with how it is currently written.
Right, and I guess what I'll say is, you know, we have done since the onset in all our facilities, we have followed, you know, both the task force, our board, and the council on directive. So I'm kind of relying on you as the sounding authority to give me that direction of how you want us to proceed. And we're happy to enforce or how you want to see fit to move forward. We just never felt as a staff that that was really our place to make those decisions for the city. And we've kind of just followed suit on what you've done in other facilities and businesses.
Sure, and that's a lot to put on you guys, Terry. I mean, my family quit going to the wellness center because nobody was complying. We quit using the hot tub because people ignored the limit you guys posted on that. So, I mean, yeah, this personally turned me away. I know the doctor also posted that he was not using the facility anymore either. So, I mean, it does turn away business. I know some folks just ignore it, but I mean, ultimately, it's going to be the other council members here too that are basically going to tell you your left and right limit, I suppose, on it. But to me, I would just view it as they're coming in the front door if they're not wearing the mask, at least when they check in, before they get to a reasonable exercise location where it would make any sense that it would come off. I mean, that's a pretty simple enforcement measure.
Thank you. Councilman Villar?
TK, when did, so we did increase our signage up there within the last few days?
Yes, it's probably been about a week. We just had them on the entrance exit doors initially. Now you'll find them at about every location where you'd come, you know, whether you'd turn a corner on a track or come out of a locker room, go into a pool, you're gonna see signage, you know, we didn't make it look like a pit crew t-shirt by any means. It doesn't look like a billboard, but they're very well placed. You cannot come to the front desk if we raised a question to say you didn't see a sign, put it that way. But that's been about a week now, I think, Councilman.
Do we make masks available for people that, I mean, I got to say too, there's quite often I still can't get used to leaving my car with my mask. So I got to go back and get it. I mean, do we make masks available for people that would wear them and just don't have them or forgot them?
Yeah, we have the disposable masks.
Oh, we do.
That the city, you know, they're not the behind the ear, behind the head. They're basically almost a stick on along the cheek line. We received them from, you know, the mayor could probably help me out where we got them from, but we've had, put it this way, I think maybe 3 boxes and we still got 2 and a third.
We have other masks too, Terry. If you think people would use cloth masks, we can provide you with cloth masks to give people who forget their mask, if that's an issue. And,
you know, and
maybe that's what it will take, is to a city employee walking around with a box of masks going, oh, did you forget your mask? Here's a free one if you'd like. That might help. And
right.
I mean, I know that the staff are all wearing them. I don't get it. I would never go in a business that said, please wear a mask, and not wear a mask. I'm not seeing the lack of compliance as much in the stores anymore. It seems like pretty much everybody is wearing a mask now, even though our numbers are down a little bit. Everybody knows there's that other strain of virus, which is even more contagious. And when it comes, it's going to be fast and furious. And maybe that's why, but it is kind of frustrating to see folks continue to ignore the resolution, which says if you're within 6 feet of someone with whom you do not reside, you wear a mask. Councilman Bueller?
Thanks, Mayor. Terry, do you know, what are the private clubs doing in town?
You know, I honestly couldn't answer that, Bruce.
Good question.
I haven't been into one, and I'm not aware of, no one's came to me with any other comparisons. Maybe someone on the council may have a better answer.
Mayor, how do we enforce this here in this building?
We don't have a problem here. Most people wear a mask.
Because we have other public facilities that the city owns that we require people to wear masks. So why would this not be
I don't know.
in the city?
And I think it is because it is hard to exercise vigorously with a mask on. And so you're going to have the people that are running or swimming that are not wearing masks. And so the other folks see people without a mask, and so they just don't wear one. But I don't think we have this problem at the library. I don't, Terry, do we have it at other park facilities?
No, by far, everywhere else we post, we have probably pretty close to 100% compliance, whether that's the field house or, any of other facilities. The wellness center is by far the biggest concern we have with the masks. And I think to round out the conversation is, I think we've got to a point that we have people that respect and want to utilize the mask. We have people that just don't think they need to wear them. And those are the ones that, I would look to the council to give me that directive. And I know Dr. Sherman did say, I believe it was in the Sioux Falls, that their policy is, when you get upstairs, there's no question you are to wear a mask, where the downstairs more of, more of your higher end cardio, your more intense workouts. And then you got, the basketball courts that raise a question. You can't do 6 feet, but it's not prolonged contact either. But there's so many different variables in our wellness center with, some are low impact walking, some are high impact on the treadmill. You've got basketball, obviously difficult to swim with a mask on. But even if we can mandate that they wear a mask until they get to a place that guarantees 6 feet apart, I'm just looking for something to give to the staff, to be able to say no, as Councilman Hewer said, we need something, we do have other rules with clothing. This one, it feels like we're just at the mercy of the user as we sit right now.
Well, and it is what you expect. I mean, I've been a member at clubs where if you walked in with shoes and you weren't carrying shoes to wear at the gym, they would stop you and ask you, where are your gym shoes? Well, I was just going to wear my sneakers. Nope. No, you're not. You turn around. And we don't do that here. We let you walk with your muddy shoes on our nice gym floor and on our track, and most people don't. But some people do, and we don't stop them. And I don't, that's human nature, I guess. But Jason, Councilman Rademski?
Terry, when these people come in to the rec center, do they have masks on? And then after they get by the front desk, do they think, okay, I'm in the clear now, so I can take my mask off?
That is very typical. As far as adults, the youth have gotten to a point they don't come in with them. Well, they do come in, but they're not wearing them. Most adults will come in, and I'm going to use a percentage of maybe 80% come in with the mask on, will get to their destination, whatever piece of equipment or location that is, and then remove it. We still have, I'm going to say a third that do utilize them throughout their entire visit, but overall it's wear it in, get to your location, take it off.
Does your staff periodically walk through there to see, monitor the facility, and if they come across somebody, I mean, what would be the harm in asking them, hey, you either need to put your mask on or I'm going to have to ask you to leave?
If that was our directive, that wouldn't be hard. We based it off of, the previous, we kind of, I won't say we read into the council official resolution, but, we were very cautious to use the term mandate. So we were basically saying, if you are able to wear one, you are to wear one unless you can maintain 6 feet of distance. But at the same point, part of that said, but we are not the enforcers. So it became very difficult to balance the two of us knowing what we should be doing, want to be doing, but we felt we couldn't. And I think that's why we're having this discussion now, is maybe what you just said is to give us that ammunition, to have our site supervisors, our front desk staff, to say, hey, I notice you're not wearing a mask. If you're able to wear one, we please ask you to put that on. So.
Sure. I've been to several restaurants in town. You've got the mask, the stronger language for people to wear a mask, but you got restaurants in town with people dealing with food, and none of the staff has masks on.
That's not good. Councilman Albertson?
It was interesting. Thank you, Mayor. It was interesting. The other night I went to a basketball game, and they've just put in a mandate now that if you're going to attend school activities, you have to wear a mask, including the kids. Well, during the course of the game, of course, the kids were yelling and so on, and a few of them, the mask just disappeared. And one of the assistant principals of the high school went over to those kids and called them down and told them to put their mask on. Must have given them a choice because most of them put them on. One young fellow came down and left the arena. So I'm thinking that the reason they're doing it probably at the wellness center is because nobody is saying you will wear it or else not be here. And I'm not putting that on you, Terry, because you need the mandate. I know that. So it makes sense to me that we don't become the illness center like Dr. Sherman said.
Yes, well, and I will send over some cloth masks if you don't have them, Terry. We were distributing those to all the city buildings, and we've got them in City Hall, and I haven't put them out yet, but I know at the library, they're in a box, and it's out.
We've got a box at the main office as well, a full box at the field house that we've got a table full still, so we could bring over at least one more full box to the wellness center.
Yeah, we want those masks to be used, so, and you know, it's pretty normal to see people in a mask now. We're all kind of getting used to it. It's not that hard. So, Councilman Hoyer?
Well, and it's just a challenging thing too, Terry. I know you know that, but I mean, there's still places in the community. I mean, even at kid pickup for school, you'll see teachers that don't have theirs on. So it's one of those things where I don't know if it's just that we think it's 2021 now and we're past it, or what. But it's hard to get people to just stay vigilant with it. I know we've gotten awful used to it. It's kind of nice having it on in the winter because it's cold, but it's one of those things. It's just really hard to enforce it right now because we don't have that enforcement mechanism. But I'd say just keep doing the best you can with it, and keep in mind, I mean, you go to any of our big box stores, they'll tell you if you're not wearing it and offer you one. So, I mean, if we can get to that point, maybe that's all it is just a little more pressure with it.
Well, and if you don't change the resolution, we have the same language as from the last meeting. I think just to retraining the staff, have multiple masks available, simply do a better job of going around and just asking the question, saying, hey, are you not able to wear one? Kind of retrain the thought process. I think right now the people that don't want to wear them know that they don't have to or don't feel they have to. And I think we can change that dynamic. Just training the staff on some, a nice conversation to have with our users, say, hey, we appreciate if you wear it. Now, if you change the resolution tonight and make it a mandate, that makes it a lot different too. So I will just follow the lead and still answer questions, but kind of listen on what direction you want me to go.
Okay. Councilor Menti?
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback this conversation because I think there's a lot of good points being made to one of, I think I'm also seeing a little bit, the bigger stores, they offer you a mask. They're doing some of those things like that. I still see people running around in Target without one. But the other thing I think is happening down on Main Street is that they're doing a really good job of trying to make sure they have the mask postings and encourage people to wear masks. But we're starting to see people, maybe like Michael said, it's 2021, but they're kind of coming in without a mask. And I don't understand why you wouldn't respect the business owner's wishes or the mandate. And so I guess I want to put it out there to people that please follow the wishes of the business owner and respect our mandate. And if you don't want to wear a mask, don't go in that store. We don't need to have people going in now kind of almost looking for, hey, I don't have to wear a mask, so don't make me. So some of the same things Terry's going through, I don't want our business owners to have to feel like they have to have these confrontations with people saying, hey, you need to wear a mask. I'd like to put it out there for people to just wear the mask and follow the wishes of the business owner, or don't go into that business, I guess is the kind of thing I want to just put out there so that we understand that people are trying to do this right, and let's help them be successful at it and stay open and all those other good things. Thanks.
Right. Thank you. Okay, well, Terry, just continue what you're doing, and we'll get those free masks out there, and you can offer them to people who are not wearing a mask in case they forgot their mask, and hopefully they'll remember that next time. And I'm not hearing any council members say they want to change our resolution. Is there any desire on anyone's part to change the resolution? Councilman Bueller?
I do think that's very valid. You brought up the point, and if it's true that the virus has got mutations now that are way easier it's way easier to get the virus, I think. I think we got to watch this. We got to stay ahead of this thing. And Terry, I just think maybe your people suggesting more often, maybe taking a little box of masks around and saying, hey, you need one? If they don't have one on. But I think, if these kind of things come to pass, if we do get this other strain, I think we're we're doing this in other community buildings. I think we've got to follow suit there as well. And I think you might lose a few, but you might gain a number of people too that don't go there because people aren't wearing masks.
Right. And Dr. Sherman pointed out that CBS Morning News reported this morning that there's been a 1,000% increase in pediatric cases in South Dakota since May. Kids are now getting diagnosed at rates never seen before. And I don't know if that's because of the new strain. I did hear that the new strain is affecting children more than prior. And gyms are one of the places. They are in the highest category of risk of places to go and things to do. Is going to a gym is a high-risk activity. So if you're going to partake in the high risk as it comes to COVID and the spread of COVID, maybe wear a mask. Cut that risk a little bit. See two hands up. Councilman Albertson?
Thanks, Mayor. What would be the reason we couldn't mandate masks at the wellness center? I mean, you're not mandating it for the city of Watertown. You're mandating it for one of the facilities that belongs to the city of Watertown. And people could argue, of course, that's their facility then. But, I'm just struggling if we don't help Terry out a week from today. And I asked Terry, how's it going? He said, well, not much has changed because people are looking at him and his employees or his colleagues there and saying, you can't make me do that. There's no mandate. And so my question is, what would happen if we did mandate?
Well, here's what our resolution says. All people in Watertown shall wear a mask when within 6 feet of someone with whom they do not reside. That's what you council members passed. What's the difference between that and using the word mandate? We're just playing with words here. That's a mandate. That's already a mandate. We just don't say the word mandate because that's a naughty word, but all people in Watertown shall wear a mask when within 6 feet of someone with whom they do not reside. Okay. All we need to do is that's already there. I don't think passing a new resolution with the word mandate will change anything. I mean, this is the rule of law. You wear a mask, and we have people that don't, so I don't get it. But I think that we can make the peer pressure ease it a little bit by passing out the masks and making them more readily available to people. Maybe they'll start doing it.
Well, quick question, just I guess a clarifier for me, but like the wellness center, is it really a public building when it's not free of use?
No, we could use the word mandate there. It's our business.
Right. So
We
you
could.
can just as easily refuse business.
We could.
That's kind of where I think it's hard for Terry, because it is a business. You have every right, I would assume, whoever manages that building to establish that. Because we do have it as a mandate. There's no enforcement mechanism legally, but you have a right to refuse business anyway, don't you?
Yeah, we do. It's just, he's asking, what do you want him to do? Like how far do you want him to push it? And I think we can start by just upping the game a little bit and see if we get better compliance. And if not, then 2 weeks from now, we do have another opportunity to change the resolution if you want. But I can see there are people on the council that will not vote to be any firmer if they aren't even following our own resolution right now. So anyway, I think we beat that horse to death. So let's move on. Is there any old business? Is there any new business?
Sorry.
That's all right.
I do have a bit of old business. I did, just to bring everybody up to speed, I did have discussions with the folks that installed and are going to repair the air handling unit at the Wellness Center above the pool. Just to find out, why this happened. Was it installation? Was it manufacturers? Was it somebody involved in the maintenance of the facility? And what it kind of came down to was they believe that there's a heat exchanger that has a leak internally. So there's really no way for us to be able to see that. It's inside the enclosure on the roof of the building. And the belief is that moisture that's entered the system through that leak has ruined other components in the system. Those are the ones that they need to have replaced. One way we could, and they even suggested once that heat exchanger is removed from the system, that we could actually cut that and try to find out. But I suspect, in my opinion, from what I've heard, is that when whoever did the manufacture on this thing, most likely, in my opinion, this thing leaked from day one, because we had issues from year one with this system, and it progressively got worse and worse. And I would assume that's because you got more moisture and more moisture into the system. So it probably was some sort of a manufacturer's defect. We can't say for sure, but folks, after looking into this and asking a lot of questions, I don't think we have a choice right now. But to replace this system, there is a warranty. The one thing I would say is maintenance needs to be more cautious about making sure these systems function properly. And I will say, in the process of looking at this, there is actually a component in their system that was put in to take heat from the system and reintroduce it back into the pool to help heat the pool. And we found that has never been used.
What?
Yeah, it's sat there idle, and it's not been used. So that's something that now they're going to look into that to make sure that that gets utilized. I mean, we paid for it. It's in the system. So, and then also there were some issues with temperature control in the water versus the air inside the building, and I think they had some recommendations for us to better control the temperatures to make it more comfortable in there and still balance out so we get the pressure necessary to operate.
That'd be great, yeah.
Bruce, was that on us that was never used, or we were never told about it, or what?
I don't want to
Wasn't
point.
part of
I
the
don't want to
learning
point fingers. I can
process,
just.
I guess I just don't know, but
Yeah, I don't want to point fingers, and I think maybe it's one of those things. It's in there, in the assumption that it was in use, but it wasn't, and I just don't know that there were people in a position for the maintenance side of this to realize that.
Right.
That's my.
It's a pretty high tech system.
and the good news is we found out that we have it, we can use it, and but the other thing is the warranty issue on this. We'll have a full year warranty on this after it's been completed. I did ask about warranty on components themselves, and they're going to look into that. But unfortunately, we're going to have to pony up and get this fixed, and it'll be spring, most likely May, before they get this done. And there's issues with lifting components. I think the heaviest component's probably 700 or 800 pounds that we have to get to the roof, which I think you could use a forklift, but there might be multiple levels to deal with there. So it might require a big old crane to do that. Did you have another question?
yeah. So now we're not totally replacing this.
No, we never were.
We were just okay.
It's components like the compressor's going to have to be replaced. That heat exchanger. There's about three major components, and I can't remember what the hell the other one is, but we have to replace those three major components, unfortunately, and that's the cost to do that. So I think we don't. I don't think we have a choice. We just got to get it done.
Yeah, and is there any chance that when they take the old part out and replace it with the new, that they can do an autopsy on it?
Well, that's exactly what I was saying. They
will.
said, they even recommended.
They will do an autopsy.
Well, they didn't say they would, you know, but they kind of said, you guys could have this cut. And I'm sure, I don't know exactly.
Well, yeah, because if we find
Yeah.
that it was like a, you know, if it's been dented, like installing it got damaged, that's one thing. If there's a split in a weld that a weld didn't hold, that would be a different thing.
Yeah, you know, Mayor, I would suspect there's a pinhole somewhere and perhaps internally where it was soldered or in the material itself. But again, I think this should have been recognized year one and investigated year one when it was still under warranty. Yeah. And so we've suffered, and we've actually had people leave that, you know, aren't swimming anymore because of the air quality that we've had. So.
Okay, well, thanks for all your work on that, Bruce. Appreciate it. Is there any other old business or new business? How about liaison member reports? None? Any announcements? Councilman Villar?
Should be worth noting that a longtime council member, Glenn Johnson, passed away here with the last few days. 18 years he served in this on this board.
Do you know what year? What time period?
I do not. It was before, Bruce was before you were done. But according to the obituary, 18 years he served on the council.
Wow. Well, thank you for noting that. Any other announcements? Okay, we will not be going into executive session pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2, and there be no further business. I declare this meeting adjourned.